All right, we should be live. So welcome, guys. Thanks for coming on my channel tonight. I know we usually do the open mic, but it looks like tonight we're just gonna hang out for a little bit on here and talk about whatever. How have you guys been this week?
Hello,
Good.
hello.
And hello. Yeah, Richard just, abandoned us this week, so.
Yeah, he's a son of a bitch.
I know, he freaking fame's gone to his head now.
Well, he's got his project funded, right? So he's got
Yeah, the fund's changed
responsibilities,
him,
you know.
though, man. The fund's changed him.
Totally, all that money went to his head.
Yeah. I'm just kidding. He's still a good dude.
Oh, he's the best, man. Like,
I know.
I think he deserves a couple nights off here and there. I mean, on Saturday
Yeah.
we're going to be going for 12 hours, so
Oh yeah,
I don't blame him.
That's gonna be fun.
That is going to be good. I was telling Jay that I'm going to like rearrange my setup so I can just like lay on my couch during the afternoon while we stream.
Nice.
And just have like my big screen TV and my monitor and just be able to kind of do two things at once. I'm realizing I need another monitor really bad too, just for my regular.
Do you only have one?
Streaming. I had two, and then one of them kind of fritzed out. And
That
then
is
I just got the
exactly
one
what
for
happened to
now.
mine. I had two monitors, so where I keep my light post now is where I actually kept my second monitor. And there is a solenoid or something inside of that goddamn monitor. It just blew out, and I'm like, so I'm back to one monitor now, or back to one monitor
Right
now.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I've been there. I used to have like 3 old CRT ones years ago that I'd put on multi-screen, and it was always like every year or so one of those would burn out, and then I'd have to replace it. And then now with at least with LCDs and HD monitors, they're a lot cheaper, but I just haven't bothered to pick up another one. I want to try and find the exact same Samsung. I hate having 2 mismatching monitors. That's the worst.
Link your I'm gonna have to face that. Link your YouTube channel in the chat. Because for whatever reason, I know I'm subbed to you, but I can't find what is your YouTube channel again?
It's just Nova Blast, but there's other people named that, so yeah, I'll pull up my.
Yeah, plug it right quick.
Yeah. And then we'll put it on Twitter. And
well, I just retweeted Nova's tweet with the link. Oh, okay. I don't know why. I'm a damn idiot. I just retweeted.
Aren't you always J Money?
I just retweeted your link, and then I'm like, hey, can you put your link in the chat?
Like the StreamYard link you tweeted?
No.
Just... That would have been a fun stream there.
Lord have mercy.
All right, so I just threw it up in the chat.
All right, so close that.
But
and
it's on my profile for my Twitter profile. You can get to it from there too. It's the link on my profile.
Oh, great. My thing.
Oh, wait, no, that's my Acetic Smog channel. Yeah, see, I'm doing this just from kind of like my main channel, not the ComicsGate channel. So I don't know why I did that, but I just figured because we're not like talking about anything specific ComicsGate or having a guest on or anything, I'd just do it on my personal account. I usually back up most of my videos on here anyway, so.
Oh, okay. There we go. Now I can. Hey, browser was like going like non-responsive for a second there. I'm like going, what the hell?
I've been playing around with OBS as well, so you can do green screen and have, you know, motion graphics behind you or other things on screen, and then also be able to send that to your webcam, so you can just have that appear as your webcam in StreamYard.
Okay.
Yeah,
I gotta.
I'm gonna get the pole from the dollar store or Walmart. That nice little pole with where it's like a little movable
like a curtain pole kind of thing, or
curtain pole. Yeah. It's like $8, and then I'm just gonna get a green fabric from Walmart, and that's like $4 or $5. I know people order the green fabric, but you can just go to Walmart and get a goddamn, you know, X by X. You can cut. You can ask them to cut it however size you want.
They are pretty cheap on Amazon. I think they're only like $20 for like a 20 by 10 foot good quality green screen, because it's kind of like that bright green, right? So it shows up really good on the camera.
Yeah.
I found if you just buy a flat color, like most of the chroma key options in these programs now are pretty good. Even if you just get like a bright red or a bright orange, you can still use it for that. It's just the bright green is used because it's not a common color.
Well,
right?
I know Cecil uses like gray. He uses a gray blanket. And,
really?
Yeah, and it's able to pick up the green screen.
Right. I think even StreamYard has a green screen option in it. I just haven't really used it.
Yeah, that's what everybody uses. Yeah.
So
that's
have
what I
you
want to
guys?
use. I kind
Have you
of,
guys been?
you guys know. Ah, damn it. God, it's terrible of me to ask. Do you guys know of Draw the Blank? And I don't remember his name off the top of my head. That's so stupid. It's on the tip of my tongue. Son of a bitch. What's his name?
What were you thinking about, a streamer or?
Yeah, I'm going through my subscribe list here.
You ever had one of those
Well,
moments?
the way he does his green screen, excuse me, is essentially the similar way that I want to do my green screen in my shows. And just going through, I follow so many people, it's annoying.
I should look for one. I think I have actually like a bright blue, like a blue screen or something that I got, but I just never really use it. But I could probably use it this weekend.
Oh, it's like on the tip. Don't you hate when something is on the tip of your tongue?
You'll think of it. We'll just talk about something else, and you'll think about it.
Yeah. It's so mad.
Oh, should we watch the new Dune trailer and then give our opinions on that?
Yeah, let's
we
do
could
that.
do
Let's
that.
do
All right,
that.
let me see if I got it here.
John Malin. I saw John Malin's tweet. He wasn't appeased at all.
Yeah, some people are.
I liked it.
I liked it too. And the thing is, I kind of like dry science fiction. It doesn't have to be like the most astounding, mind-blowing special effect.
The Jimmy Dore show. Jimmy Dore. Good God. I'm so disappointed in myself for not remembering it. But Jimmy Dore?
Yeah.
Yeah. That's who I was talking about. So anyway, I digress. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
That's okay. I need you to remember it. I was kind of anticipating that people would be upset with it, even though I knew I would be impressed. And I think I was a little more impressed because of how well he managed to keep it looking very literate and artsy and not like a typical science fiction blockbuster, because I don't think that's the right approach, even though they kind of did that with Blade Runner 2050. Was it 2052, right?
I think so.
Yeah, anyway, whatever. And people were kind of let down because they thought that'd be a more, balls to the walls kind of science fiction movie, but it's a little more of a heady type of film. I'm just trying to find what the right link is here for this.
Okay, there we go.
Okay, official trailer. There we go.
Okay.
Still getting used to like.
So about the Mets.
Don't nobody. I implore anybody, don't watch sports this year. Yeah, no sports.
Okay, we can actually see it right now on screen. Okay, I got it here. All right. Have you guys all watched it? Yeah.
Yeah, I watch it for sure.
Okay.
I should get
I roboted out, I think, there for a second.
There's something happening to me. There's something awakening in my mind. I can't control it. What did you see? There's a crusade coming.
Oh, it's a crusade and not a jihad.
Do you often dream things?
That's what they call it in the book.
Just as
they're just as bad.
So, are you guys a fan of this director?
I don't know this director, so.
Okay, so he's done The Arrival with Amy Adams, that one about the extraterrestrial ships that come to Earth and they have to learn how to communicate with them.
Yeah,
have you seen that?
Trash.
You didn't like it? Okay.
Nope.
And he
nope.
did the Blade Runner sequel, 2052.
Decent.
Yeah, I enjoyed it in IMAX. That was definitely a good IMAX movie. It's a little more underwhelming, I guess, when you watch it at home. But and what else has he done? Oh, he did Prisoners. The one with Hugh Jackman, where his daughter is kidnapped. I haven't seen that one since it came out. He also did Enemy, which is pretty good. That one's with Jake Gyllenhaal. Kind of a weird psychological.
Hugh Jackman. Which hold on, let me look. Oh, that has I'm not a fan of. Is it Jake Gyllenhaal?
Jake Gyllenhaal. Hey, Dutton.
Jake Gyllenhaal. Yeah, hey. I'm not a fan of him.
I'm still waiting for that curly mustache, Denton.
That'll happen.
I'm pretty sure. I'm like 100% it will happen.
How did you cut that mustache from before? Why would you grow it out and then cut it?
Like it's the Icarus effect. Like I was shaving and I cut too close.
The test is simple. Remove your hand from the box, and you die.
Ooh.
What's in the box?
What's in the box?
What's in the box?
You inherit too much power. You have proven you can rule yourself. Now you must learn to rule others. Something none of your ancestors learned.
So there we got Poe Dameron. Like, I'm noticing with this movie, they've done a good job of selling the realism. Like I was saying, they don't really go over the top with the technology or with the designs. Like I think it's kind of inspired by the David Lynch version, but not quite. They didn't go as far in the designs. They just kind of used that to inform the designs. And the book reads like a historical novel too in many ways. So I kind of like that it's more of like a period piece type of sci-fi movie. Even though it's technically in the future, it still feels like it's part of the past.
Mm-hmm.
My father rules an entire planet. He's losing it. He's getting a richer one. He'll lose that one too. Arrakis is a death trap. Kill them. This is an extermination. They're picking my family.
I like that shot.
Let's fight like demons. An animal caught in a trap will gnaw off its own leg to escape. What will you do?
Pause it real quick after that chick comes back up. Did you watch Emergency Awesome?
Not recently, no. I haven't seen his take on this.
So his take on it is they interviewed that girl right there. I forget, from Spider-Man.
Yeah, Zendaya.
And she says she's not as important in this film as she is important in the sequel. And
I think that's probably true for both of them, right? For the
yeah. So what I think, because I didn't watch the TV show, but I watched the old movies,
mm-hmm.
and I think this takes place with the war that his father has to go through when he starts to fail.
Mm-hmm.
And she will be more prominent, and they will be connected throughout the universe. To be honest with you, it feels like almost like Star Wars. With this.
Well, Star Wars was influenced by Dune because Dune was written in 1965.
Yeah.
So there's been a lot of stuff since then that has, that's the problem with Dune, is that it's going to feel like it's ripping off all these other properties when meanwhile all those other properties were inspired by Dune. It's just Dune never really got done justice on the big screen, right? So, the desert planet and all these spice mining and all that stuff, all that's influenced in Star Wars. But
I love it, dude. I love the universe.
And if they do well, because I think Warner Brothers did commit to 2 movies for this, to
Well, did you notice
the
that
one
this
book,
trailer?
and they've got more books, so they can make more movies down the line.
Did you notice that this trailer is 3 minutes long?
And it feels like a teaser because they don't really give anything
That's
away.
big.
Yeah.
So that
the movie's probably going to be close to 3 hours anyway.
Well,
I would imagine it's going to be 2.5 to 3 hours because they're going to want to like pace it out and not try to speed through too many things. Like there's a lot of stuff in the book.
Yeah, exactly.
So if they split into 2 movies, they can kind of flesh all that stuff out and flesh out all the characters so that you actually care when things happen to them.
This is going to be like another Lord of the Rings for a certain generation.
I hope so. I hope people take it seriously and don't think of it as just like plunking down $10 to go.
Well, you remember
about 3 hours, right? Like
you remember Warner Brothers has been taken over by AT&T. So the fact that not only is this trailer over 2 minutes long, which was this like new rule that they set like almost 2 or 3 years ago, that all trailers have to be 2 minutes long. So not only is this trailer 314, which is pi, long. This is one of the first big trailers that AT&T has put out under Warner Brothers with one of the productions that has been made under Warner Brothers for AT&T, if that makes any sense. So this is
well, they got a lot riding on it, right?
Yeah, exactly. That's what I was going to say. AT&T has some big dollars. Trying not only is this because remember when China started influencing our movie theaters and our movies, they made trailers only 2 minutes long. And so you remember back in the day when granted it got kind of ridiculous with the
well, a lot of times you think of it this way, right? Like trailers were about putting in front of the movie in the theater, but since nobody's at the theater right now, they realize let's just make a 3-minute trailer because everybody's at home watching this on YouTube. I'm sure they're going to have a 2-minute version for the theaters once everything gets going and once they do like trailer 2, trailer 3, because they're going to market the hell out of this, right? And I think they said they got to hit 500 million to break even based on the budget and the marketing, and that's just a guess.
That's good. That's good.
Well, and the thing is, I think it's easily going to hit that. I think this is going to do pretty well around the world. Like I think a lot of the smaller countries that they don't really rely on
Sci-Fi Channel. Did you watch a TV show on the Sci-Fi Channel?
I remember seeing it years ago when it first aired, but I don't really remember it too well. Like I just remember the CGI being really, because it was like 2000 or something, right? That it came out 99 or 2000. Yeah.
Fade or Justin, did you watch it?
What, the trailer?
No. Did you watch the old TV show?
Like Dune and Children of Dune on TV?
I have not.
Well, no.
Okay.
No. You know what? Y'all might hate me, but I actually have never even read the books.
That's cool. I haven't read the book. That's fine.
I read the book more than 20 years ago. I got the audiobook of it recently, so I might actually put that on and listen through it again. But I think I was about like 20 or so when I read it the first time.
I am halfway.
I enjoyed it. I'm in my 40s now. I'm over 40.
You're an old man.
I am an old man.
I'll be 39 this year.
Respect your elders.
Fade, how old are you?
Fade's the one that looks like he's 19, but he's not.
Yeah.
He can't grow.
I am 30.
How am I the youngest one here?
I don't know. Because you're on the bottom?
Yeah.
Hey, yo.
Hey. Womp womp. But you know what, though? It's okay. I'm a power bottom.
Yeah, we actually are in order according to age. I'm the oldest, then Jay, then Fade, then Dutton.
Yeah, so John, you somehow we put this in age.
I didn't mean to do that. It just works out, you know? That's the karma of the universe.
It's just meant to be because we knew Fade would ask the question.
What? Wait, what?
I know you.
One day, the legend will be born. All of civilization depends on it.
The future. I can see it.
No, there it looks really like. So is he going to use the weirding way in this movie? Do you think he'll discover his powers?
What was that?
Isn't that what it's called? That's like his in the Lynch movie, it's kind of like that sound-based weapon, but in fact, in the books, it's more of a mental power that's focused. I don't know if it. I'm trying to remember if it works off the voice or not. I'm trying to. I think that was kind of more of an invention for the Lynch movie, but it's like like he is technically a Jedi. He's just not an actual Jedi, but it's kind of part of the idea where Lucas got the idea for it.
So he didn't go through race training.
Well, and that's the thing. Like, yeah, maybe he's a Kenobi. Maybe he's not.
Oh God.
I know.
I must not fear. Fear is the mind killer.
My Lord Duke.
Where the fear is gone, only I will remain.
Go ahead, pause it. I feel like that's kind of corny. Like, that's one of the corny part of the trailers that I didn't.
The reveal of the sandworm here at the end.
Just his dialogue, before they transition into this scene here with the worms.
Like the whole my liege bit kind of thing.
Yeah, he's like, blah blah blah.
Well, Momoa is like a one-note type of actor too, right? Like, I don't mind him, but he's starting to pretty much just play the same character in every movie.
Who is that?
Yeah, Jason Momoa, Aquaman, because that's Aquaman as the right-hand guy there.
I was talking about the young guy who is narrating.
Chalamet?
It looks like
yeah, I think what they're doing is they're really going to try and sell that he's a young kid in this movie so that they can kind of age him up and play him more mature in the second movie, because it's kind of a Messiah role. So you've got to see some kind of transformation in the character. So I think they're playing him as more innocent and, kind of like beguiled by this world and all his, all this political intrigue going on around him, right? Because if you have him play it too, he is a good actor. I've seen him in a few other things and he definitely has some good acting chops. I just think, in a trailer like this, they're not really going to give you any meaty morsels of acting because they don't want to give away the story. And already they're using a lot of lines from the book. So it's kind of like they are trying to tug at people that are familiar with the source material. But yeah, it's like this trailer also, the music, I like it on its own. It's an interesting cover, I think, of that song, of that Pink Floyd song, but I don't know. I hate when they use contemporary music in trailers like this where it's not like on Earth or anything. It just always kind of takes me out of it. So I know it's kind of the trailer formula. They got to do that, but I don't know. I would have saved it for the more, theatrical trailer or whatever. This teaser should have been just all on point with the theme and the tone of the movie itself and just forget about amping it up with music. But I do like the sandworm reveal. See, now it's big, but it's actually not as big as I thought they were going to make it. Like, if you see how big he is standing there, well, it's similar to the Lynch movie in terms of scale, but I don't know. I would have maybe gone about.
What's the Lynch movie? Is that the sci-fi movie one?
No, Lynch did the theatrical version in '84, but there's like multiple director's cuts of that, and there's even a version that's like the Alan Smithy version where Lynch took his name off of it. There's some where he's got a writing credit, others where he doesn't. And that's the one with Kyle MacLachlan from Twin Peaks playing Paul Atreides. It's worth a watch if you like weird movies, but it's kind of, it tries to be like a Star Wars ripoff in one sense because it's 1984. And I think they even asked Lynch to direct Return of the Jedi and he turned it down. And then all of a sudden, I think it was De Laurentiis that came to him with a bunch of money for Dune. So he kind of did it just to make the money and, hopefully get bigger projects out of it. But it almost ruined his career. But I don't know. Honestly, I think this, if Warner's smart, they do have a new franchise on their hands because there is a lot of source material. But I don't know. And then we get the cool logo at the end. I like the logo treatment quite a bit. Yeah, and it could be too that we're just hard up for like a cool movie too in the theaters. So I mean, this trailer is
lackluster.
Well, I give it like an 8.5 out of 10. Like, it's not the most amazing trailer I've ever seen, and I'm not like, this is not my most anticipated movie by any stretch.
Right.
But
we'll show my screen real quick. Show my screen.
Okay.
Uh-oh. Everyone shield your eyes.
Somehow in Dino's mind put the Elephant Man together with Dune, and he called me and asked me if I would read this book. I wasn't 100%. I don't know quite how that happened. That's my one, in my mind, big failure. And but I learned a tremendous amount on that film. I love Dino. I love his daughter Rafaela. I love the cast and crew. And I loved Mexico City. I was down there for 1.5 years. It took years to start to finish. But it was a nightmare. And it was a nightmare.
Weirdo, and I love it.
All right, so does anyone want to say anything on that?
Well, David Lynch is, like, in my eyes, he's one of the most, like, inspirational creators I've ever seen in my entire life. Like, I pretty much love all of his films, regardless of how accessible they are. Like, he's just such an artist at heart, and his whole, like, I could listen to him for hours. I've listened to all of his talks on, like, transcendental meditation. I've listened to all his stuff about, where does creativity come from, where he gets his ideas from. He's done all sorts of different. So, I mean, he's one of those guys where it doesn't matter which movie of his it is, or his music. Like, I don't know if you've ever watched any of his music videos and, like, the actual music he makes. And it's, like, very contemporary, like, underground. I want to call it garage, because it's not exactly EDM, but it's, like, definitely, like, weird spoken word, kind of folksy, kind of punk, kind of, like, I don't know, it's impossible to describe, but it's like, you can tell this guy definitely can't stop creating. And he does paintings, he does sculptures. So I don't know, he's almost the worst person to get to adapt Dune. I think it was just, they wanted a high profile director. He wanted to do something high profile, and it was just, a bad idea. Putting such a masterpiece novel with such a weird visionary director that, he kind of creates his own universes. He doesn't need to work in somebody else's universe. But like, are you guys Twin Peaks fans?
Special effects and so forth got very cheap.
Say it again.
Are you a Twin Peaks fan? Have you watched any of that?
I've never watched that, no.
Well, if you guys want to understand David Lynch, you can watch any of his movies, but really Twin Peaks by far is the best way to get into his head and what kind of themes and what kind of, like, issues and stuff he gets into. And it hits so many different elements. Like, it's weird. It's noir, but it's also, like, comedy and, like, almost like a sitcom. Like, it just has so many themes mixed together that you can't even believe it works. Like, it works so well for just being a mishmash of so many different ideas. But that's really what his strength is taking all these weird concepts and, like, putting them together to where they don't seem surreal, but they have some kind of element of surrealness to them.
Yeah. Well, let's listen a few more minutes of this.
For sure, put it on.
And it was a nightmare. some of the special effects and so forth got very cheap. They ran out of money. And no, in a lot of those cases, he didn't get what he wanted. And they just didn't have the money for it. I mean, there are descriptions in the screenplay of folding space, which are just gorgeous, and I know he would have loved to have done. And you know, had the film been done a few years later, he could have had, and they would have been gorgeous.
Mentat Fighter de Vries. Message for Mentat Fighter de Vries. The Baron is impatient for Leto's reply.
It is by will alone I set my mind in motion. It is by the juice of Safu that thoughts acquire speed, the lips acquire stains, stains become a warning. It is by will alone I set my mind in motion.
David directs...
So how do y'all feel about that?
It's just so, like, I don't know how to explain it. Like, he's usually more...
I don't
his choice of shots.
I can only.
He wasn't allowed to direct it his way.
Yeah, exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly.
Like, it would have been really weird
if he would have been given.
His way.
What was the budget, do you think, for the Dune movie?
I think I read at one point maybe something like 30 million or 20 million at the end of it all, even with the budget or with the marketing and stuff. But that's like nothing. Back then, it might have been quite a bit of money, but
that's still nowhere near enough.
Yeah.
No,
like, because what was Star Wars? Star Wars was much
the first
higher.
Star Wars was about 8 to 11 million when all was said and done. Empire was somewhere around getting close to 20 million, like 18 or 20 million. And Return of the Jedi was around 30 or 40 million, I think.
Right.
So for Dune to get 20 or 30, like, still a fair bit of money. It's probably the most expensive movie that Lynch ever made at that point, but
it was well before its time, I think.
Yeah.
And it's a lot of the cast that he would put in his other movies, so it's a lot of strange actors. It's a lot of very, odd choices in terms of the casting. I think it was Kyle MacLachlan's first role, like, because it's before Twin Peaks, it's before the other stuff like Blue Velvet that he did with Lynch. I think this guy was the same age playing Paul as that other kid in the current trailer is. But yet, everybody back in the 70s and 80s looked a lot older than they actually were, whereas now people tend to look younger.
Right.
I don't know what that's about, but...
And for different people in different ways. For me, it had a lot to do with imagery. He'd say, more like a wind. Or he'd say, think about Elvis. Or he'd say, sometimes nothing at all. There'd just be a moment, pause, and we'd sort of stare at the ground together and look at each other and sort of nod. And he loves to direct from behind the camera, so you'll hear his voice from time to time. Which is fun, because then it becomes a challenge, is who can make who laugh first. So he laughs and sometimes ruins a take, and sometimes he'll get me. That was just the friendly process.
Our shared enemy, the Harkonnens, are once again in control of Arrakis. Stilgar, your leader, has asked me and my mother to teach you the Weirding Way, to crush the Harkonnens. We must do more than this. We must totally destroy all spice production on Arrakis.
It was huge. Everybody talks about...
The design work in the movie is the best part of it. Like, regardless of how the performances come off or any of that stuff, or how rushed it is, because they're basically trying to fit the whole novel into like a 2-hour movie. So they had to they didn't just cut stuff out, but they had to change how certain things worked in order just to get the script to work. But the designs of all the environments and the ships and the aliens and all that stuff are pretty neat. I mean, there's, I think Giger... Oh, wait, I'm thinking of the Jodorowsky. So there's another movie you guys should check out called Jodorowsky's Dune. So it's Alejandro Jodorowsky, the director, the Spanish director, was supposed to do a version of Dune back in the 70s that was going to have Mick Jagger. Who else was it going to have? Oh, Salvador Dali was going to play like the Emperor of the Universe. Oh God, what's his name? Rosebud. Why can't I think of his name? Citizen Kane.
I have no idea.
The director of Citizen Kane and the actor. It's just slipping my tongue right now. But anyway, yeah, he had all these like, you know, big stars from back then that were supposed to be in Dune. But again, it was probably going to be like 15 or 20 million back in the mid 70s. But they did this giant binder of production art. And I think they got H.R. Giger, Mobius, but yeah, like just people that are famous for having done, you know, movie pre-production imagery and stuff like that. And there's a whole documentary about it. And he goes through these designs and talks about his ideas for the movie. But again, it was going to be very surreal and very kind of like different from Dune, as most people would understand it.
It's about things, many crews, lots of things going on at the same time, and it was a big production. That principal photography lasted 6 months, and models, miniatures, you know, special effects photography lasted another 6 months. So I didn't have final cut on that film. So I didn't have final cut on The Elephant Man either, but Mel, in effect, gave it to me. And so that's the big lesson. Don't make a film if it can't be the film you want to make. It's a joke, and a sick joke, and it'll kill you.
Yeah, Mel Brooks was the producer on Elephant Man. Not a lot of people know that.
Yeah.
Even though he's known for comedy and stuff. But yeah, David Lynch is like an interesting guy. Like he's definitely somebody to study his forms, you know, like I don't know, there's not very many people out there like him, whether it's a film director or an artist. Like he's kind of one of those geniuses that you only see once in a generation, but not really anybody understands at the time that he's doing something. It's always like 10, 15, 20 years later that people look back and they go, oh, wow, this guy was way ahead of the curve, or he created, you know, kind of a feel or a moment in time that, you know. So that's why I bring up Twin Peaks, because it was a total phenomenon in the 90s when it hit. But even though it was getting good ratings, the network didn't know what to do with it. They basically made him kind of the key principle of the show was a mystery, like a whodunit, who killed Laura Palmer. And people wanted to know who killed Laura Palmer, but the whole idea of the show was the mystery of who killed Laura Palmer. It could be one of 20 different people.
And what is the show?
Twin Peaks. And so they did 2 seasons of the show on TV. And then they did a movie called Twin Peaks Fire Walk with Me, probably in 94, I think, after 92. Both seasons. Okay. 92. And the movie is like dark and like the movie is amazing, actually. Like I almost think the movie is on a whole other level from the show, but the show like had to be very, because it was ABC at the time, right? Which I think, I don't know if Disney owned them at that time, but they were still very family friendly. And the show got away with a lot. Like I think it was one of the first shows to show like an actual dead body wrapped in plastic on the beach, you know, before all these Law and Order crime shows and you know, serial shows became a big thing, right? Where they showed gore and all sorts of weird dark elements. Like Lynch was getting that stuff in there, but still kind of making it very almost like a sitcom or like a soap opera. And so a lot of people at the time were like, this is weird. It's like this weird, dark, paranormal horror kind of noir feeling show, but then it's got this kind of soap opera sitcom feel to it as well. But he's being totally meta. Like and there's some really interesting analysis of the show where it's like the show itself is a meta analysis of TV versus movies. There's a guy who did like a 4-hour documentary where he kind of like literally dissects the entire series and like shows his proof of concept, how the characters in the show know they're in a TV show, but they can't really just say that they're in a TV show because they're in a TV show. You wouldn't ever have an actor on a show say they're acting. But there's all these choices and all these things that happen where it's almost like you know, it would take me forever to explain it. And there's even this element of like electronic transmission versus film, you know, and like there's all this imagery in the show that gets to like, you know, the veil, like it's almost like the thing you're seeing on a TV is in another world and you're looking at it through a window, and, you know, and it's so meta, it's not even funny. And then when you kind of look back on the show with all this stuff in mind, you're like, holy crap, this guy was really doing some advanced philosophy shit in this show, but it was just made for a general audience, and it was just kind of couched in this idea of like, who killed this woman. But as soon as the network made him decide who killed Laura Palmer and kind of made that the story, then the show just died. People lost interest. Then when you get into the movie is super weird and stuff, and it kind of puts all that stuff back in the box again. So you kind of like retcons the TV show and all the answers and makes it mysterious again through the movie. And then now looking at the show through the lens of the movie, you're like, this is weird. Then he did The Return a couple years ago. So Showtime did a whole season. I think it's about 10 or 15 episodes. I can't remember. I think it's pretty long, maybe 18 episodes. And they are just like a complete mindfuck on the whole show. Like it's almost remaking the show through like a multiverse concept almost, but not really. Like the guy is, I don't know, David Lynch is almost, you can't really even explain it. You just got to experience it and then read the Wikipedia and then read, you know, listen to other people talk about it, because everyone's always got their own idea of what he's trying to get across. Okay, I want to get in.
Share my screen real quick. My screen real quick. 56 seconds.
Uh-oh.
This is like the trailer or something, or? Yeah, there's all sorts of clips out there.
Federal Bureau of Investigation. Special Agent Chet Desmond. I'd like to see.
So this guy is literally kind of almost a recasting of the Kyle MacLachlan character, the Cooper character from the TV show. So when the movie starts, you see all these characters that resemble the TV show characters, and you're like, what is this? This is none of the people from the TV show. And again, it's like a murder of a woman, and it parallels everything in the TV show. But then you're like, okay, well, why are they telling us all this again with new characters and a new town and a new woman that gets killed and a different FBI agent? But it is kind of a weird play on both when a movie gets made of a TV show, they recast the actors and they redo certain things because they know there's people going to the movie that aren't familiar with the TV show. So they kind of just, redo all that stuff, remake it. But then at the same time, it's also showing that, like, no, this has happened before. This story of Twin Peaks and Laura Palmer is not unique, that it's kind of just a slice of America where this is happening in every town. And and you don't even really notice it till the movie's over, or you kind of like hear Lynch talk about what he's trying to do with the movie. But I don't know, Twin Peaks is a cool world. Like, if everyone talks about all the stuff on Netflix now and all these shows to get into, but like Twin Peaks is one of the best television shows, best properties ever developed in my eyes. Like, I've probably watched it 10 times through, like all the episodes and the movies, and I still don't completely understand it. Like, it's that well done. But I like stuff like that.
Right.
I have never seen it, but I do give credit to Twin Peaks because apparently, and one of my favorite indie creators, Josh Howard, got his name kind of big doing Twin Peaks fan art.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Like,
it has a good
they
community.
have even bought him, I think, you said, when did they do the new Twin Peaks? Like 2000, what?
I think 2017.
Yeah, because he did so much fan art, they actually flew him behind the scenes of like the new Twin Peaks in 2017. Nice. So, he was there when it debuted and other things. It's cool when you hear him talk about it.
And even if you just like good dialogue, good writing, good like story atmosphere, like, even if you don't understand everything about it, it's such a flavorful show. Like, there's so many things you can draw from it. And it actually gets me kind of like inspired to write and do things whenever I watch it, because it's the same thing with like Tarantino. Like, you may not love all of his movies the same, like, okay, I like this one more than that one, but they're almost like infinitely watchable. Like, you can just put them on and get something out of it. Like, Kill Bill is not the best written movie, but the scenes and the action and the character interactions are amazing.
Yeah.
Even if the plot's a little, tired or, been done before.
Why don't you have a seat over there with your partner? Go ahead, make yourself at home, because it's going to be a while. Why don't you have some coffee? Go ahead. It was fresh about 2 days ago.
See, now this is a play on the secretary they're reading is all laughing under her, she can't control herself. The sheriff's being a smartass, and the FBI agent there is kind of just taking it in stride and doesn't know how to react. Now, what that is that when you compare it to Cooper, the FBI agent, and the actual sheriff in Twin Peaks, and Lucy, the actual secretary, their personalities are the complete opposite. Lucy is very innocent and very like bubbly and cheerful and just wants to make everyone happy and wouldn't actually insult anyone right to their face. The sheriff is very likable and very competent and very willing to help. And the FBI agent, Cooper, is very assertive and very matter of fact and very like chipper, and almost has like that 1950s perfect image of the FBI G-man kind of idea, right? So it's like, and that's the thing with Firewalk with Me, people were like, what the hell? They're taking these themes and these tones that we loved from the TV show, and they're completely turning them on their ear. And it becomes almost like this weird other universe version. But meanwhile, it's still taking place within the regular Twin Peaks storyline, and it ties up completely. And it's really Lynch kind of like playing with this whole idea of like how our personalities can be like a mirror of each other, right? Or the dark and the light, and all these kind of philosophical concepts. And it's just all this stuff grows on you. The more you watch it, you kind of notice these things, and you're like, holy shit, this is so... Now, one thing I wanted to bring up, because we've been talking about Dune for a while and Lynch for a bit there, was the Rey Skywalker, which should have been Rey Kenobi. Did you guys hear about that story about Daisy Ridley actually admitting? Yeah, so like pretty much everybody had guessed that. That was even during the Force Awakens. People were saying, it'd be kind of neat if Rey was related to Ben Kenobi. And then, because then it would make sense why she's going after Luke, trying to find Luke, and why she's trying to, bring that whole story full circle, right? But then they go and screw it up, do the Palpatine thing. Like, why would Palpatine's granddaughter seek out Luke? It doesn't really make any sense. And then they admit that, they didn't even know what they were doing throughout these movies. So they kind of dropped a huge ball there, right? Like, they could have really made the final trilogy tie in with the original trilogy and with the prequel trilogy, but they decided to screw it up. And the Phantom Menace was right all along, right? All these Star Wars actors are coming out and basically admitting that Lucasfilm and Kathleen Kennedy didn't know what the hell they were doing. So I don't know if this is just the actors are worried that they're never going to get a job again, or if they actually think, maybe this is, well, I don't know. I guess it means Disney Star Wars is dead, right? Because they're not worried about any appearances at this point.
Well, I mean, if the actors don't get any jobs, it kind of just goes in line with every other Star Wars actor for the most part. Many of them, like, Mark Hamill went from Luke Skywalker to let me do a bunch of voice acting because I can't really get too much on the live action stuff.
Right. But he still did good for himself. Like,
oh yeah, no, he still did good, but you know, a lot of them show. I mean, even like the prequels, like Christensen, whatever, the guy who played Anakin.
Yeah. Hayden Christensen. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, he did like Jumper and a couple other things, and that's about it.
And then you know, like what is his name? The guy who played Obi-Wan. He's done like the most stuff.
Right. Yeah. Ewan McGregor.
But for the most part, everyone who wasn't Mace Windu, and Mace Windu was like the only really known actor prior to Star Wars. Really haven't done too much.
That was like cast on a whim too, where they're just like, "Hey, you want to be in this movie?" And he's like, "Yeah, sure. Can I be a Jedi?" And they're like, "Of course." And then it was like, "Can I pick my own lightsaber?" And they're like, "Yeah, of course." So they pretty much laid out the red carpet for Samuel Jackson. You know, they're not gonna make him read lines for that.
This shit is terrible. They've ruined the franchise.
Well, and I think it's still salvageable. Like, I just think they have to put a hard stop behind the Disney trilogy and just kind of like forget about that. Like, they might not be able to make another movie for a couple of years, but I think if they either go more wholeheartedly back into the extended universe, like the novels and the comics and the things that some of the fans are aware of, you know, the kind of the classic storylines that, and they can do it Marvel style where they just cherry pick and, you know, mishmash things around from the books, because they already did kind of borrow certain elements, like the like Kylo Ren and Rey are basically Jaina and Jason from the novels, like Han and Leia's actual kids from the books. And there's a younger brother named Anakin Solo who kind of turns to the dark side, so they kind of took elements from that. Jason turns to the dark side as well, I think, in the books toward the end of the series. I think he gets killed by Anakin at one point. I haven't read through all the there's a series called The New Jedi Order. Like, everybody knows about the Thrawn trilogy, which is the Timothy Zahn novels that were written in, I think, the early 90s, either like 89 or 90, 91. Heir to the Empire, Dark Force Rising, and Last Command. Those three, if they had have adapted those books, they could have just done those straight up, and they would have been amazing. Thrawn, everyone says, oh, Thrawn's not a villain. He's more of just like a cunning strategist, but he's a villain very unlike Darth Vader. Like, that's why it would have worked, because it's a very different kind of, he doesn't just rule by fear. He rules because he's pretty much the most intelligent military mind in the galaxy at that point. But like, he studies alien races art forms to understand their military strategies and stuff. Like, it's really interesting what the book gets into. And that's where Mara Jade comes from, who was the Emperor's hand. So during the original trilogy, the Emperor had, like, you know, basically these Sith acolytes, or, you know.
Yeah, salutes.
Well, and there's a, what are you talking about? Like the clone of Luke?
He had concubines.
Yeah, Luke. There's a character named Luke.
He had concubines.
Well, that too, yeah. Of course.
Like, that's how Mara Jade studied. She was a concubine / assassin.
I guess so, yeah, because I think there's even a scene where she's supposedly in Jabba's palace as like a dancing girl or something like that, keeping an eye on Leia or something. I can't remember. Maybe I'm misremembering that. I can't remember, but yeah, there's all sorts of weird, you know, tiebacks to the original trilogy, but it only takes place 5 years after Jedi, so it's not that far in the future. It's not 20, 30 years like the Disney trilogy. They could have still done it even with the actors older. Like, it wouldn't have mattered. They could have just had the storyline take place 20 years later or something. They don't have to say it's 5 years. So those books are pretty good. I would definitely recommend, still at this point, like, they're enjoyable, and if you haven't read them, or the audiobooks are really good. But the New Jedi Order, which I think there's about 18 or 20 books in that series. The first one's called Vector Prime. That's the one that everybody knows of because Chewbacca dies in it. Spoiler alert. That's a well done series. I think I got through most of that. I think I might have not read, or I just skimmed through the last 2 or 3 books. But there's all, I read all the Cole's notes on them or whatever, so I kind of know how it wraps up. But I might go back and read those all again. And that actually introduces a whole new species called the Yuuzhan Vong, which are like this kind of, not undead, they look like zombie. Here, I'll see if I can find a picture of them. But they basically come from outside of the Star Wars galaxy proper. So they
the whole unknown regions is where they
the
like
unknown
far,
regions.
far unknown.
Yeah.
You know what though? They're like so some people hated them, in that part, but then again, I thought it was kind of cool. That was the whole reason why Palpatine wanted to be the Emperor. It was slightly heroic, although not really. Like he wanted to rule and power and stuff, but he also realized, hey, the galaxy is not united enough that whenever they invade, like the Vongs invade, we're gonna basically get our asses handed to us and be wiped out. So, we need a one galaxy empire to basically go against their empire.
Right. And that's what was interesting, is you had like former Imperials, the Rebel Alliance or Galactic Alliance, I guess at that point, all of them teaming up, so it's basically, here's these alien threat that we've got to team up with to get rid of. Plus they're immune to the Force. So because they're not, I guess I'm trying to remember if they explain that, like basically all their technology is biological. So their ships are grown. They don't use any kind of, mechanical technology. They're actually against it. Their religion forbids it. They have like these beings called shapers that create all their kind of like, subclass beasts and things like that, because they don't really have vehicles or anything, but they have like mounts and all sorts of weird creatures and stuff that they kind of symbiotically use on the battlefield. And even their ships are alive. I think they use gravity wells as their power source, or like instead of a hyperdrive, it's actually like almost like a artificial black hole singularity at the front of the ship that actually like, kind of warps space around it. So they get into all these concepts that are actually way different from what we come to understand about Star Wars, but it all still works in the universe, and it would have been something new, right? So the thing is, like, whether they used Thrawn, whether they used Yuuzhan Vong, like they had all these ideas that were that would have allowed them to push the limits of the technology. Like these creatures would have looked amazing on screen. The ships would have looked amazing on screen. Like they have these world ships, big giant, almost like in Battlestar Galactica, like the big battle stars, massive, things almost the size of an asteroid or a moon, but it's this big living kind of almost Lovecraftian type of creature in space that they're inhabiting, and all their ships are inside of. This kind of neat idea, but they thought, oh no, let's just remake the original movies, right? And then you're going to do that, but then what they realized that Ian McDermott, Palpatine there, he was the only guy they could get back. Like that's what I wonder, is did they not make Rey a Kenobi just because Ewan McGregor wouldn't come back and do something for it, or because how do you explain that? I don't know, but
well, I think at the time he probably would have been busy doing Birds of Prey, to be honest with you.
That's what I mean. It probably just was like bad timing. And
well, I think everything just fell out from underneath their feet, and Ryan Roundhead Johnson was kind of dismissed at the same time of them not wanting to continue with him at the same time.
Right.
And they just tried to do with the best with what they could do. And the franchise was completely ruined.
But it's weird too, because they're still saying they're going to do one season of Kenobi, so it's like they could have tied it into the TV show. Like they kind of missed a big opportunity, because for as bad as the Disney sequels are, I mean, they could still be trying to build some of that synergy in. I mean, they do have their audience. There are people out there that are fans of them for some reason, and I don't like hate them like they're the worst movies ever. They're the worst trilogy. Like, I like the original trilogy first, then the prequel trilogy, then the Disney trilogy. And like, even the prequels are, I don't know, they're fun to look at, but yeah, the story is a little, I don't know, I think maybe the story is still better actually. They're just long-winded and they're very like a lot of wooden dialogue and stuff in them, but they have payoff. Like, each individual movie has payoff. I'm a weird one. I actually like Attack of the Clones the best out of the three. Most people either like Phantom Menace or Revenge the best, but I just found Attack of the Clones had the best mix of the political stuff, the battle scenes, the romance, for whatever, however wooden any of it came across or as bad as the CG might have been. I just felt it was the best all-round movie, but I'm weird that way. I know most people hate that one. Like, that's usually on the bottom. If people rank all 10 of the movies, or how many are there? There's like 10 or 12 movies now. They always put Attack of the Clones near the bottom, but that one's at least the best of the prequels, if you ask me. Although I do like the pod racer sequence and the Darth Maul Duel of the Fates and shit.
So I like the Revenge of the Sith, Attack of the Clones, and then actually Phantom Menace.
Okay.
Hey, you guys.
Yeah, and I mean, that's respectable.
I would put that entire trilogy still above the sequel trilogy.
Yeah, for sure. Because I mean, I think I've watched the Disney ones maybe like, okay, I saw Force Awakens and Last Jedi twice in the theaters. Actually, I saw all three of them twice in the theaters, but I think I've only watched them once since at home and just kind of putting them on in the background and stuff like that. Whereas the prequels, I saw them like 3-4 times each in the theater at the time, and I've probably watched them dozens of times since they've been out. So, and in the original trilogy, I mean, God, over 100 times for the first movie. Empire easily over 60 or 70.
I also have
and I used to watch Jedi every day as a kid.
My ranking of the original trilogy is much like the prequel. Return of the Jedi, Empire Strikes Back,
and then Star Wars, yeah.
And then New Hope. Like, that's my order. Return of the Jedi is the best. And that is the most blasphemy thing you could probably say.
No, I used to watch that one literally every day. Like, to me, the first Star Wars movie is just kind of on a level of its own. Like, I don't even really rank that one in the total overall class, because I've probably seen, like, it was literally one of the first movies I ever saw as a kid, and I had it on that old video disc, wore it out. But Return of the Jedi, once that came out, I think it was on like pay TV or something, and we recorded it. Me and my brothers, we would literally pop that thing on every single day and watch it. So I mean, that's probably Return of the Jedi is the one Star Wars movie I've seen the most out of any of them.
How many brothers do you got?
I got 3 younger brothers. So
damn, son.
It was like, yeah. And then we got all Brady Bunch like years after that, when my stepmom came and lived with us, and she had like 5 kids, so it was pretty crazy.
It was
but
normal.
Star Wars will be back.
It was normal just like 70 years ago.
Yeah, exactly. People would have like 10 kids.
Yeah.
But yeah, Star Wars will be back. I mean, the Mandalorian's doing well. Kenobi's like gonna happen, and then they'll eventually make more like offshoot movies or whatever. They'll bring it back. I just don't think they're going to do any trilogies or anything, because they're not going to want to. At least if you're going to do a trilogy, plan it out. Like, they clearly didn't plan out the Disney one, so unless they've got good scripts for all 3 or whatever, don't even bother. Just make them all standalone.
Yeah.
Okay.
What is it, Dutton?
He just turned into a tiny black bear.
Don Bluth has just launched a new studio.
Who?
Don Bluth.
Share your screen if you want.
Yeah. Like, I just saw it, so I've not even fully read all of it yet. So. Don Bluth, the creator of like Secret of Nymph, Land Before Time.
Yeah.
Like my god tier of animation.
I'm literally old enough that I saw Secret of Nim in the theaters when it came out as a kid.
Damn.
Well, you know,
as well as a few
old,
other.
so
I know that's what I mean. I'm getting to that point where it's like certain movies come up, and I'm like, I as a kid saw that. Like I literally saw a double feature of Tron and Empire Strikes Back when those originally came out in '82.
Damn.
I think I was 6 at the time, but yeah, it's like.
So, someone who's been studying under Blue since 2009 is the vice president. Yeah. Okay, so this is the one issue I think Don Bluth still has is I don't think he ever fulfilled his Dragon Leia's like 20-minute animation. He crowdfunded like
right. I remember hearing about that.
It's made so much money. Like if you talk to Fresh and Luke about it, he's like the amount of money it raised. He's like I could do like 10
a full hour and a half movie with it basically.
Yeah.
I don't understand.
I thought they did release the game animation on DVD though. I remember seeing that. I didn't pick it up. So I usually would try to find stuff used and I never saw it used. But I think that original Dragon's Lair game, there's like a sequential film that they made. And I don't know if it uses like the DVD choose your own adventure type thing. Like you can still play the game through the DVD menus. I think that's what I remember hearing.
They're doing a traditional like hand-drawn animation.
Ooh, nice.
That's smart. I mean,
one of its first projects will be Bluth's Fables, which will actually be multiple short stories similar to like nursery rhymes and Aesop Fables written by Bluth himself. And I'm pretty sure like this is what this YouTube video is like one of those.
Right. There's a whole new
Fables,
generation.
But
they don't know what traditional animation was like. So yeah, do it.
I'm excited. Like it's one of those I 100%. Although I went to school for 3D animation, 2D animation is just
like something that can't be beat.
If done right. Exactly. Like I prefer watching even though they use the same like animation cells for a lot of the movies, like the classic Disney 2D with like just background is nothing but paint.
Oh yeah, totally. I mean,
it's just I don't know. It's just to me, it hits something that.
Which is like watching those old special effects scenes and stuff, right? With all the practical special effects, or even when they do the optical, kind of animation, drawn in energy effects and explosions and things like, it's not entirely real, but it still has a charm all its own. And it's not cold and lifeless like CGI or, video compositing or whatever. Anytime you get around the year 2000 and up, everything just kind of like, it either becomes so realistic that you don't even know it's an effect shot, so you can't really appreciate it because it just seems almost too real. But yeah, all that old stuff from the 60s, 70s, and 80s, I mean, that's when it was really in its heyday, and these guys were true artists. They weren't just like craftsmen or technicians or whatever. They were kind of like, put something on screen that you didn't really ever see before. And that even Don Bluth, like, animating kind of in the Disney style, but also still doing his own thing, right? Like all the Don Bluth animation has a character all its own.
Well, I mean, he used to work for Disney, and like that was his biggest downfall was he always wanted to release his movies the same weekend as a Disney movie, and for the he had success for the first time with like Secret of Nymph. And I think he had success one other time, but for the most part, it was like, ooh, Don. This is why you space him out. He got crushed for the most part, and he had Steven Spielberg, and together they were great. And Don Bluth did mentioned later on, like, hey, his biggest career mistake was leave or not continue working with Steven Spielberg and thinking that he learned enough from Spielberg before he did, and trying to be a head director.
Right. That's right, because yeah, Spielberg I think did produce a bunch of those early films that he did, right?
Yep. He helped Don Bluth write them and kind
something.
of like direct them. Although it was clearly like Bluth's animation.
Right.
Spielberg kind of helped guide his hand on like the storytelling and like the beats and other things like that. And when Bluth tried going on his own, the animation looked great, but some of the story was like, ooh.
We'll see, and not changing topics too much from Don Bluth, but on screen I've got the G.I. Joe Transformers crossover film. So I'm like a huge fan of all the kind of 80s toy property animation, whether it's, He-Man, G.I. Joe, Transformers, Thundercats, Turtles, all that stuff. So with this, and I think this screenshot is from like some sort of game or something like that. But I'm kind of happy to see that Hasbro is still, or Paramount, I guess, who has all the rights to this stuff, is still looking at moving forward with this. I think that's how you can kind of make. Well, Bumblebee was pretty good, but having this bigger universe, like setting up their own something a la MCU, right, where they've got multiple properties that they can kind of cross over, or do all sorts of different tie-in movies or solo movies. This is smart because I think they've also got Visionaries and ROM and Mask and some of these other properties all wrapped up in that as well. But I would actually almost like to see something retro, like where they do the cell style animation, very much like the 80s properties. Did any of you guys ever see the 86, I think it was 86 or 87, the Transformers animated movie and the G.I. Joe movie?
I saw the Transformers movie.
Yeah. What'd you think of it?
I loved it.
Yeah. Because it has a very anime feel.
Mm-hmm.
Even though it's, based on the American property, it kind of, it does that big budget atmosphere like an anime film would.
Yeah.
How about you, Jay? Do you remember seeing either the animated G.I. Joe or Transformers movie? Maybe he's away from the computer. How about you, Dutton?
I've seen like the animated like 80s Transformers movie. You got the touch.
Yeah.
But
you got the
power. And Optimus
that
dying.
Soundtrack is amazing.
Like Megatron just
crying, man. I saw that one in the theater too, and there were like little kids crying, and there was people at school the weekend, because I remember, I don't probably think I saw it opening day, but I saw it like that weekend or the next weekend, and like literally for a couple weeks it was kind of the talk of the playground or whatever, right? Because kids were obviously watching the TV show, and comes this movie where they actually kill Optimus Prime, they kill Starscream, they turn Megatron and all these other guys into different characters. And then I think later that led into the animated show. I seem to remember they kind of, carried on that storyline. So, for all the kids playing with the toys and watching the cartoon, it was kind of the first taste of what you get now with the MCU, right? Where people are like, talking about it for weeks and, oh, you got to go see this movie. And it actually affected things in the storyline after the fact. But and then the G.I. Joe one is kind of weird because I think it was trying to play on the success of the Transformers one, or at least the, kind of that marketing aspect. But it came out a year later, and by then, I think the show or like the property, like the toy lines themselves, had kind of dwindled. So the movie, I don't even know if the G.I. Joe animated movie ever even came out in theaters or not. But it's worth it. I mean, you can find it out there. It's not hard to find. I think it's even on YouTube, but it's pretty good. And it's got a weird element where it kind of tries a more, not supernatural, but like there's this idea of Cobra Law, which is kind of like almost like Shangri-La, like this ancient civilization of like snake people that inspired Cobra. So they try to give a more more backstory on who Cobra are, and not just terrorists. Yeah, not just some terrorist group. And I mean, that's, for me, a lot of these properties, it's all about the bad guys. Like the enemy characters are always more interesting than the heroic characters, or at least they're very well set up. You know what I mean? Like they're not just, they might get beat at the end of the episode, but they always kind of make them very unique in their personalities.
Yeah.
So I did like the G.I. Joe movie for that, because it kind of focuses more on Cobra than it does on G.I. Joe itself. But, for a lot of people, they just thought, okay, well, you just destroyed the quote unquote mystery of Cobra, or, you put an explanation for something that didn't really need it. And I guess some people that kind of kills it for them, but I don't know. I think if they do this now, they're going to obviously make it much more contemporary. Like the Transformers are going to obviously be tied in with the Bay universe, like the Bayformers, that kind of storyline. It's not going to be based on the animation or the comic.
Yeah.
And likewise with G.I. Joe, it's going to probably be more on the realistic side, like the either the G.I. Joe movies we got or Snake Eyes. And I think it even says that here, like according to Geekosity, plans are again moving forward, theatrical toy box after Snake Eyes. But that movie is kind of, it all depends on how successful Snake Eyes is. And then they got, like I said, they got the comics to draw from, so they know how to put these characters together. These Revolution, the IDW issues, I've got most of those. I haven't read through them all, but again, a lot of that stuff I found in the dollar bin or even cheaper, and I grabbed it all. But that's even bigger. That's where they mix in, all the different Hasbro-verse characters. And I think they were even going to do ROM, Space Knight, and all this stuff at one point, but it'd be smart just to concentrate on G.I. Joe Transformers. That's where you got a built-in audience.
Yeah.
Honestly, I wish they would not do anything with the Michael Bay shit and just go, hey, that Netflix Transformers.
That's what I heard. Yeah, that War for Cybertron show is actually pretty good, apparently.
Oh my god, that was amazing. I highly recommend.
Okay, I'm gonna have to check that out soon, because I was planning on watching it. But yeah, if you say it's good,
and it's only like 6 episodes or something like that. But like they dive right into it. Like the war is has been going on. The only complaint I would have is if you knew absolutely nothing of Transformers, you might be a little lost. But if you know, like, if you're a veteran of Transformers, like I am, you're gonna be like, this is what we wanted when the movies were announced.
Right.
This is what we wanted.
One even has kind of like the more retro look to the characters. Like their designs are very much based on the animated counterparts, right? So yeah, just visually looking at it, I was like, oh, this looks interesting. I'm gonna have to watch this. And then I heard some good reviews, but I just haven't gotten around to watching it yet. So I'll have to put that on my list.
Ditto.
But yeah, it's like a lot of these 80s properties, like they're pretty much money in the bank. Like if they do them with the right amount of fan service and take it seriously, like that's the one thing I did like about Bumblebee. It was a little slow. I didn't think it was as amazing as some people were saying. Yeah, it's good. It's worth a watch. But again, it's kind of more of a Saturday matinee, like just kind of put it on in the background while you're cleaning up or just chilling out. But it's not as exciting. Well, so the Michael Bay movies, like where there's almost no story and no plot, it's just kind of like random shit. At least there's always something happening on screen. There's always action. There's always some sort of twist happening. Whereas in Bumblebee, it's kind of the Saturday, what do they call that? The after school special kind of feel to certain parts of it. And there's some action, but it just, only having the Bumblebee there and kind of focusing on the, a girl in her car type storyline. It was, it could have done a little bit better, but it does. The Travis Knight, the director of it, he does a really good job. Like you can definitely see where his background in animation helped, really sell the character of Bumblebee, and they do a good job making him feel real. But you kind of want more Transformers in it. And then when they show the flashbacks on Cybertron and stuff, you're like, okay, yeah, I want a whole movie of this, please. Not just like, cameos of these characters, and I think that's what that War on Cybertron is trying to do, right? Is they realized people want to see that. So we'll see. And I'm just still waiting for Masters of the Universe. They keep saying that's still going forward and might eventually only be a Netflix movie, because I think Sony might have made some deal or something like that. And now with all the theatrical movies in peril, they're probably just going to shuffle that off to Netflix, because they got the new Revelations show and some new kids show, right? So it would make sense that they just do the He-Man movie as a tie-in or something like that for all that shit. But that's another property that if they did it properly and put some money into it, and they could make hundreds, probably even $1 billion off something like that, just like with the Marvel movies. But yeah, I guess we'll see. We'll see if movies ever truly, because I think, I don't know, everyone says like after the election everything's going to kind of go back to normal, but
I
don't know if
one.
I'm not really believing that so much, like the way everything's getting ramped up, because I don't think it really matters who wins. I just think there's too many people getting away with shit at this point, and nobody's really
doing anything.
Yeah, nobody's gotten in trouble for anything. That nobody's really. I think some people, for those taking down the statues months ago, I think some people finally started like getting charged with that stuff. But for all the recent riots and stuff, I haven't really seen much.
There's been a few arrests on those.
Well, okay, so
are they finally starting to clamp down a bit?
Trump did an amazing thing. He deputized the state police.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, any little thing they can do. I mean,
last week they deputized the state police as federal. So any arrest of the riots and stuff, people no longer go to state prison because the state police are deputized by federal marshals. They go to federal prison, which means that the local DA can't just be like, oh, our prison cell is like a revolving door.
Right.
Nope. It's, oh no, these are federal charges.
Yeah, I think I read about that last week. You're right.
Boy,
like,
if they do get out and stuff, FBI will go on, like, knock on their door and be like, hey, guess what, buddy? You got federal charges. You're going to federal court. It ain't over, boy. So
I mean, they got to do something, because I mean, yeah, they were.
Apparently this week in Oregon, a lot of the riots and shit have stopped because people have realized, oh, FBI is coming to people's houses. Oh, people are getting like federally charged. Oh, it's no longer a game of like Big Rock Candy Mountain where you can go in and go right out. Your life will be ruined.
It's about fucking time, it's like, and I still believe there is such thing as like too little too late. Like, even though he's making these changes now, it's like, sometimes there's a point in a return where, yeah, it's going to get better from this point.
Well, I mean, his issue was like twofold of
not wanting to come across like a dictator and do it too early. And yeah, I know. I don't blame him. I just think like that's the way history works sometimes, is there's so many factors going on that like your hand is forced and then you can't really do anything till it's too late anyway.
The idea of, well, let's just well, a lot of the police felt demoralized because mayors and DAs basically gave up on them, and because they gave up on like the police, it kind of shifted support to Donald Trump, of like people going, save us, do something. And he's like, well, I still can't invade with military and I can't do the Insurrection Act. Though he could, it would just make him look like a dictator and like look really bad. So he was like, boom, deputize the state police.
But see, they did it in the 70s, right? Remember, I think it was during the it 74 or 76 or whatever, right? Nixon, I think, was running at the time, and they did the Insurrection Act at that time. But I mean, those were different times too, right?
Yeah, those were different times, and then you have to think like, okay, so back then, it got really bad press and stuff, but now today with the internet,
Right.
It would look 10 times worse. So
1,000 times worse because you have 1,000 more cameras covering it. Yeah,
exactly. But just the, hey, I'm gonna help out with just deputizing, which means that we're not actually there, but we still have federal say and federal power by sending them to federal courts. And man, this guy is like, how much can you help a guy before you like, hey, I need to charge you?
Probably not a lot.
I have almost reconstructed this guy's entire campaign. Not his comic, but his entire campaign, because it was atrocious. He did not know what he was doing. Like he stopped his campaign, he ended it, and I've been playing like 20 questions with this guy.
Sorry, who'd this happen to? Who were you just talking about?
There's a creator who he ended his campaign because his campaign was so bad. Like he was gonna like hurt his entire reputation and his entire career before it ever started, because he did not know what he was doing when he launched his book.
Already have some funding already? People had already put some money into
Yeah,
it?
yeah. Like he had to refund them because it was like, ooh, what you're doing, you have no idea what you're doing. You don't have your stuff high enough. You're gonna lose money. You're gonna not even be able to fulfill the campaign. You're not gonna be able to do any of this.
Well, and I was even thinking of launching my mailing list on Saturday, but I think I'm gonna hold off a little bit because I don't even have my logo done. I'm still trying to figure out a friggin' name. Like I've gone back and forth on so many things, and I'm realizing,
you know what? When I launched my mailing list, I didn't have my logo yet, so.
I just want to be more, and I'm still trying to figure out, am I even going to be able to pay for any pages before I launch, or am I going to be focusing on using fund? I don't know. I'm still trying to work out.
Are you saying you're trying to create a mailing list?
I was going to start pretty soon. Because
I wouldn't start one yet.
But,
I would focus more on getting my name across.
That's what I think. Well, okay, so my idea is to launch in February, and I was going to launch on my birthday on February 6th. It's a Saturday. I might push that to March, but my idea was just get the mailing list going about 5 months early and kind of cover a lot of the creation process as well through that time period, because that's one way to kind of build up some of the interest for it, is let people have a bird's eye view on a lot of it. But I did so much rewriting and so much scrapping of stuff this last week that I'm realizing, okay, I don't know if I want anybody looking under the hood right now anyway. I still need to kind of patch up a bunch of the holes in the boat right now. So I'm not super, but I want to at least on a weekly basis start posting some stuff and maybe doing some not necessarily brainstorms, but just kind of talking about the writing process and talking about
yeah, man, I'm down.
Getting and even doing some maybe some polls. Part of me has pulled the trigger on a bunch of stuff, but I'm kind of want to just put some stuff out there and see how people react to it, and then pull the trigger on some of that stuff. I just don't know if it makes sense to do that with certain names and certain things, or if that's more I should just be deciding that and take it or leave it, right?
If me personally, someone like myself, I don't have a YouTube channel, even though I have 30 or 40 subscribers, and you got 24, John. I wouldn't do a mailing list for another year or two. There's a lot more creating, and someone like Justin, who has a project out now, the mailing list is important, I think. But I think you need to be more along. You need to be more along on the project.
Well, I have the world is developed, and I have basically 3 different titles or properties or characters. Now, instead of thinking of those as separate individual projects. I am thinking more along terms of an anthology. Probably the first book I put out will be 3 shorter stories set in the world with the different characters. I like what Zaid is doing with their Lost Pages, and kind of like, doing an anthology with a bunch of different characters and then seeing what the audience responds to, and then focusing on some of those characters separately in the future, depending on what hits and what doesn't, or what, and so starting out brand new, it's kind of like you're always reticent about, like, is this the better idea? Is that the better idea? Whereas they're all within the same world or universe. So I could kind of just do a simpler origin/introduction story for each of these, and then kind of see what people like and what I, kind of what feels right once you're getting art back and stuff like that, and then focusing on something in the future. But I mean, there's so many elements you got to keep in mind, right? Like, it's just all the planning and the financials, and what do you want your product to kind of look like? Like, you have to visualize some of that stuff early on. You can't really wait you can always change your mind, right? But it's like, while I'm creating this story, I'm also trying to think, like, what is it going to actually look like when it's in people's hands? And then when you kind of realize, okay, I want it to look like this, then you realize, okay, that doesn't really go with the story that I was developing. Like, I need to kind of, I want it to be a thicker format, kind of like a 64 or 96 page book, like a lot of people are doing. I have enough background for that, but then I realized, okay, I don't want to almost do one character for that. I want to split it up into multiple stories. I think it'll be more interesting to kind of look at different sides of the world, different characters in the world, versus just one singular story going through it. But, it's like, and then next week I could decide, no, this is the one thing I'm going to focus on, because the one script I had been working on for the better part of a year, I've almost completely put that on the back burner now, and I'm just focusing on this other property that's a little more comic book friendly. It's a little more in the vein of like superhero. It's pretty much still sci-fi superheroes, but it's not quite as serious as some of the other stuff I was working on. It's a little more action and a little bit more sex appeal to it than the other stuff I was working on, which was kind of coming across as more of like a movie script and very kind of hard sci-fi, and not as fun as I want my first project to be.
Right.
But
well, here's what I would do. I would first wait to get at least the book half drawn before doing anything. That way you can put pages up on your Indiegogo page, 5 pages I think it was, and do it that way.
Yeah, I'm not worried about like launching or anything, because like I said, it won't be till February, March till I even do that. And you're right, I will have some pages done, but I think I want to get some character designs and a logo, and like my series Bible is really coming together. So with some of the card stuff I'm doing, I think I'm going to kind of release some stuff in the form of a card game or like cool trading cards, and just kind of put those up for free to get people kind of interested in the world and the concepts and stuff like that. And, and I'll just, post them on Twitter. And like I said, I could put them on a mailing list page or whatever, but eventually that stuff I'll print as part of the project as perks or whatever stretch goals. And just, that's the thing. The only way to get eyeballs on you and on your project, right, is to kind of put stuff out there. So even if I don't have the full script completely worked out, I've got enough stuff where I can start doing some pinups and character art and turnarounds and stuff like that, and showing that stuff off, and just, getting people's feedback and seeing if it's something that's hitting with people. And the thing is, I guess too, with doing a mailing list, you don't really have to commit to a specific project, right? Because you can still edit your title and edit your images on your sign up list at any time, right?
I think.
Because you have to go in and create a campaign, right? And then create a mailing list from the campaign before it launches.
And how
I think you can edit all that stuff right as much as you want, right? So you don't even have to be tied to specific title or anything like that. You can change that as you get closer to launching.
And how long did you make your mailing list before you launched?
Fuck. I don't know. I probably had it for like a good 3 months.
Yeah.
Or so.
How many signups did you get?
Like 220, 250, something like that.
Okay, yeah. In my head, I was thinking like 250 would be a number I'd be happy with to start.
The ideal number to hit is like 300 or close to it. But I think I had I think I actually had like 232. Now, I did fuck up on the mailing list. Because what they don't tell you is when you launch, it doesn't automatically send an email to those on the mailing list. What you have to do is you have to copy it, or you have to export it. There's an export button. It pretty much does the spreadsheet. You go to MailChimp. Best thing what you should do, and I didn't do this either. You're supposed to go to MailChimp.com, create your little name. You put those emails in there. It basically will email all those people for you. You know, just hey, it's Justin of the Unstitched, blah blah blah. That way, no people actually see each other. Me, I just a week after I launched,
CCs to each other, kind of thing.
Yes, I did. A week after I launched, I went, why? I had a decent first day.
But see, the trick is you can do BCC, blind carbon copy. You can nobody uses BCC because they don't know what the hell it means, but it just means the other recipients can't see the other addresses. It's a blind list. But yeah, that's
I did it maybe 8 days after I launched because I was freaking out ooh, after these first 48 hours, it's kind of stopped, and some people went, yeah, no, I never got my email saying that you launched or anything. And I went, Indiegogo didn't do that? Oh boy. And then that's when I learned, and I went, oh, I gotta play catch up. I am 8 days behind than what I was expecting. So
live and learn, right?
Yeah.
You made a mistake, so I won't now. I'll learn from your mistakes. So
that's important.
Oh yeah, I tell everyone who has a mailing list or is I'm thinking about doing a mailing list. I'm like, that's actually really smart. But just so you know, FYI, because Stefani, of Thomas Moyer, he was like, man, I didn't know that. No one ever talks about that because when he first did his mailing list or was thinking about doing a mailing list. Because I was telling him before he did one, I was like, you need a mailing list. And he was like, I don't know if I can. And I was like, you need to figure out. He was like, well, because of him being international and bank and stuff. And I was like,
yeah, that complicates stuff.
Yeah. But, when I told him that, he was like, man, I didn't know that. I highly appreciate that. Because he was like, I would have just assumed that they emailed when you go live, and I'm like, yeah, that's what I thought too. So, trying to make sure that other creators don't make my mistake.
Okay, keep up the chat. I'll be back in 1 minute. I gotta go take a leak.
Okay.
But oh my god, this dude, his whole campaign, it's he's killing me.
Who we talking about?
Yeah.
Do you know who Tim Lee Olsen is?
Tim Lee.
No.
It's okay. He had a book called Melvin. And he's gonna relaunch it. But oh my god, it was I'm gonna share his Melvin in the private chat. He has a mailing list out for it now. I'm going to be signed up and you buy the book, you can get a button. But when he first launched, he promised covers without showing images, and then was like, oh, we're still talking about them doing the cover. I'm like, you haven't they haven't done the cover and they've not fully agreed to it yet, and you're already promising a cover by this person? No, that's dumb. Like, he was on Shay's channel promoting, and it was the first and only time I ever saw Shay almost want to just cuss out someone that she had on her channel.
Damn.
Yeah, it was bad. Like, I was in the chat, I was like, ooh, this is bad. I was talking in the chat, like how bad this was. She put up a few red flags. She ended the stream and was like, yo, you should probably just cancel your campaign, because he had like a bunch of things like he promised but didn't actually have or guaranteed or anything at that time yet. She sent me the link. We talked backstage and he realized all the mistakes he made, mostly because I pointed it out to him, and I was like, yo, this is fucking horrible. Like, you're not gonna get the money. You're not gonna get respect from like people. And it was like, oh, I've been busting my ass on this project for like 2 months. And I'm like, I've been doing Unstitched for over a year, bro.
Yeah.
2 months ain't nothing. You cancel, regroup, apologize, beg Indiegogo to end your campaign, which he did. Refund the people's money, and he was able to refund everyone, apparently. But yeah, but he's trying to relaunch, and he's been asking me like so many questions. So many questions. I almost want to be like, yo,
let me sleep.
What's the question?
Like, here's my PayPal. Send me like $50 at least, minimum. Holy fuck.
No, so what somebody needs to do is like do like the ComicsGate course, you know, like you could actually see. That's another thing I was thinking of, is like what little side projects could you do? Like I've already thought like, yeah, I'm going to do a gaming thing, whether it's part of my comic project or a separate project. I do want to do like a card game / board game type of thing, and even maybe try to work with some other creators and see if they want to get involved. But then another aspect is like there's all sorts of, like, most of the information is shared freely within ComicsGate, but if somebody had the right format, whether it's through like a series of video tutorials, and I mean, I know Adam Post and other people are already doing stuff like that.
I'd say Adam Post might be the closest to it, which I have issues with Adam Post's videos, but I have issues with his comics as well. That's a whole nother issue.
And that's the idea, is like, just because one person did it doesn't mean that somebody else can't.
I mean, he's a great guy.
Yeah.
But
and you get what you pay for, right? So like, it's free content, and you're getting his perspective on it, and you're getting his, you know, some of that is already not, I don't want to say outdated, but some of that content's from like over a year ago, right? So it's not exactly current with everything going on right now. But I'm just saying there is the potential that someone could make, you know, like, okay, I'm going to make 10 videos that are each 45 minutes each or longer. And each chapter will focus on a specific aspect, whether it's like finding artists and writers, whether it's the production aspects, like the formats and printers and all that stuff, whether it's kind of like, you know, genre and the theme, like what works well within ComicsGate. Here's an outline of what other people have done. Like, there's all these different ideas you could do, and people would pay for that, like, you know, $10 or whatever, and you get access to all these videos. You know, and that's
like
something
like a Patreon type thing.
Like a Patreon type of idea, but still fund it through Indiegogo and like have it as part of your goal that
you know what? I did sign up for the Rags Patreon. I did sign up for theirs because I am curious on like how they do their shit, because they don't even use like they did a Kickstarter, and they're going to be doing a Indiegogo for like a catch up of like issues 1 through 6 of the Rags book, uncensored. So, you know, it's not going to have the analytic press like rabbit covering things up and stuff.
Right.
It's going to be the uncensored, like what they give out on their Patreon. but and they only did it because they realized some people just don't do Patreon. And they do crowdfunding.
Right.
And they're about to print out issue 7, which is the end of season 1. So they're like, hey, let's just do a crowdfund for extra money while we're still, kind of working out the kinks. Although issue 7 is done. You can read it digitally. They're just trying to see how much they need to print physically. But they're like, hey, we do a crowdfund, boom.
Yeah, but the monthly subscription model with Patreon is smart, right? Because it's not directly tied to any project. So as long as you're giving people that under the hood look at what you're working on, it doesn't really matter what you're working on. And you're right. I was thinking the same thing is like you launch your mailing list, but you have your Patreon or your Subscribe Star going at the same time, right? So then that way you can actually even bring people from your Patreon over to your email list or vice versa. Like if people don't want to wait 5 months before they give you money, it's like, hey, yeah, go to my Patreon, drop me $5 a month or whatever, and you'll get, first look access to all this stuff. The same way as like, if you sign up for the list, you get a free perk or something cool on day 1 or a secret tier or whatever, once the program goes live. The same thing with Patreon is like, yeah, you give me $5 a month, you're going to get to see the concepts before anybody else. You're going to get to see finished pages before anybody else. Like there's a way to use all these tools together and pretty much turn it into a business, right? Like where you're getting that passive income constantly and even sell things, right? Like you said, do videos, do whatever, do sketches and give stuff away,
Well, that's what they do a lot is like while Luigi's doing pages, they'll be like, hey, Luigi, do, a simple like pinup drawing or whatever.
Right.
So, Luigi's constantly doing a mixture of working on the book and then doing pinups as well. And like the pinups are more or less to like buy time because, it's kind of hard to do an entire book on the Patreon, like a month thing. But you give out like pinups and stuff like that. And then you get pinup art and then you put it on merchandise. Because on the Patreon, you can also buy like mouse pads, cups, all this other crap. That has like, oh, here's the Rags girl, but she's dressed as like Link was like their latest one.
Yeah, people like the mashups.
Yeah.
Yep, and then they do on their subscribe thing, like you can get the regular cover, you can pay more, you can get like the variant, you can get a mild hot variant, or you can get all the variants, and that includes like the extremely spicy.
There's the guys with Absolute Comics too are doing something like that. Like, have you ever seen that White Widow title?
Yeah,
I got some other ones now. It's pretty good. Like I just ordered them through Diamond or whatever, through my previews or whatever, and so I got a couple of the they do nice like foil covers and stuff, but they've got like all these extra variant covers and, like you said, spicy pin-up covers and stuff of the different characters that you can get through their Patreon and their Kickstarters and stuff like that. But I mean, they're kind of smart because they're playing every angle and they're just going after the audience wherever it happens to be, and making some decent money at it, even though the comics are kind of, it's an interesting universe and stuff like that, but it's a little cookie cutter, it's kind of by the numbers, but they're kind of doing it smart. Like, I'm trying to look at a lot of different examples of what people have done and, realizing you can't really, like, there's an element of comics that is completely commercial. Like, you might be trying to tell the perfect story or the perfect, like, I think you were on Shay's stream a week or two ago when you guys were talking about originality. Right, Dutton?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's something that I've always kind of struggled with is like, and you guys were having a good conversation on there about, there really is nothing original. It's more just how you blend different concepts together and things. So
that was a struggle I used to have, but now I'm kind of more or less like I've accepted and just kind of said, fuck it.
Yeah. I mean,
everything that I do is original because it's my voice telling me the story. And I'll openly admit, like what what inspired and what I blended together. Like I did it for Unstitched. I'm like, hey, do you like Coraline? Cool. Do you like Toy Story? Cool. Do you like Rise of the Guardians? Cool. Well, I've mashed them together.
Yeah.
No, and that's smart, because the thing is, obviously, anybody that likes those things is going to instantly be interested to at least learn more, right? So you never really have to worry, as long as you're not taking things that are too obscure or too partisan or whatever, right? Then you don't have to worry.
Do you remember like Don Bluth films that were like they were kid animated stories, but kind of had like a little bit more of a mature feel to them? Cool. Unstitched is for you.
Yeah, see, when I heard you guys talking about that, it helped me like be able to write my book too. So,
like because I realize most people will be like, oh, well, this isn't original. Like I'm doing a thing about teddy bears protecting dreams. There are tons of stories like that.
Yeah.
But I know the world I created. Like once I get past like part 1 and like definitely like chapter 2, I'm going more bonkers.
Nice.
I have like plans that's like you're gonna see later down the line, like imaginary friends and
right.
You're gonna see it's gonna be like almost Scott Snyder Justice League like level bonkers, where you're gonna see like the Dream Forge.
Ooh.
Yeah, I have a bunch of crazy things lined up, but it's more or less who's gonna draw them later in like years from now. And it also kind of depends on like chapter 2 that could tell a whole story, and that could be that's it, that's done.
One thing that's been helping me write lately is actually imagining certain artists drawing what I want to actually try and visualize it, right? Because I can see it in my own head, but I'm seeing it like a movie. But when I actually start looking at it like it's panels in a comic done by specific artists I like, it starts to take on a different character and a different quality. And then it's kind of like I can tie down better the layouts and like what I'm trying to get across, and even like what the key panels on the page are going to be and stuff like that, right? Or what's the key moment, because you kind of want that one panel per page to kind of pop out, right? Or be that focal point. But and the other thing too that I'm working on is not just having this big world of different characters and locations, but actually a timeline. So the history of the world through time, even though my story may only take place during certain years or time periods, I'm trying to think of like what came before and what comes after, so that I don't paint myself into a corner later with like where the story goes. I've kind of got an arc, not just for the characters, but an arc for the history of this world. Because I actually want it to take place over multiple decades. Like I want to see characters at different ages. Because one element of my story is it's going to start like a 90s comic, in that it's going to have that same action-packed quality and the same kind of like art expectation as a 90s comic. But then once the characters get older, like the story progresses, the characters are going to actually get decades older, and then the look of the comic is going to mature to a more modern look for the characters, more realistic costumes, kind of a more cinematic feel. And I want it to I don't want the art to be completely consistent across all the books. I want it to actually feel like almost like a retro comic. Like this is what it would have looked like had it come out in the 80s or 90s. And then when it would have been rebooted 20 years later, it would have looked like this, and kind of have that be part of it. But it's like there's so many things you got to kind of take into consideration, right, when you're coming up with these ideas. And you're coming along, Fade, with your story and stuff. You said you're writing more.
Yeah, got the beginning, about real beginning going right now. So,
what is your story about? Like, are you willing to share or give an oversight?
I'll say this much: it's something along the lines with kaijus. So,
hell yeah, I like big monster shit.
Yeah, and it's gonna have like kind of like a Power Ranger kind of feel too. So
nice.
Yeah, there's room for that. I mean, you definitely have an audience there with that kind of stuff. Any of the Sentai and kaiju.
Is it going to be like rated R or rated PG-13?
I'm still conflicting on that. I want to have like, you know,
I want mine to be rated R.
Yeah, I want edgy scenes on there, but I'm trying to figure out how to go about it, you know?
Yeah, with my story, go ahead.
Done.
So my other story that is in production currently, that's not unstitched, the one that will probably go through a publisher, still crowdfunded, just, you know, one of the publishers that crowdfund. That is 100% rated R. Like,
nice.
The body count I think is 3 times higher than the page count by like page 14.
Damn. I'm gonna have to check that out when you send the mailing list.
So you already got this written?
I have written the first 2 issues so far. Working on issue.
So when you
3
say
out
that,
of
what do
5.
you mean? You mean like narrative boxes and bubble boxes for conversations? Yeah, you're good, man.
Yeah.
Good job,
like the scripts, like the first 2 issues of the scripts are done. I'm doing a script for issue 3, but I'm kind of re-editing some stuff where I'm gonna take out the last 4 pages of issue 1 because we're still doing the art for issue 1. I'm gonna take out the last 4 pages, move them to issue 2. I'm gonna extend a fight, one of the fights like midway in the issue, and kind of close it off in a way of issue 1, where then just, it makes issue 2 feel smoother. But the way I write is I kind of have I have about in every like 22 pages, I kind of have roughly 4 big points I want to hit. And typically I have definitely one visual image like burnt into my mind. So I just kind of like I raise those up as like my big valley points, and then I just kind of like fill in between to kind of make sure I can get there. That's how I write.
Yeah, I do like a 4 to 5 sentence summary, like a 1 paragraph summary for the overall story, like you said, about a 20 pager roughly. And then I go and I try to break down each page. Like I try to visualize what I need to happen on those 20 pages. So then I write another individual sentence or 2 for each page that summarizes what's going on that page. So I try to figure all that out. And then I then kind of try to break it down into panels. Like, am I going to do this as like a 2-panel, like big splash page, or is this going to be 4 or 5 panels? Like how much stuff do I need to get across on this page? And then I do another sentence for each panel roughly. And I'm not putting any dialogue in at this point, or if I have dialogue, I just kind of like add it to the sentence or just point form kind of thing. And then I've gotten a couple, I had some other stuff that was further along as a script, but I realized I didn't kind of do my overall summary and my page summaries tight enough at first. So then I kept going back and moving stuff around. And that's why I've kind of now scrapped that previous story, and I'm kind of doing my
I think I write kind of weird. I write kind of weird in the fact of I think I do a mix of script and Marvel way when I write. So like I said, like in my mind I have like 4 big moments in about every 22 pages, right, that I want to hit. And I kind of try to fill in how I get there. But I'll do on paper, 1 through 22. Like I have 1 at the top and then like 2 on the left, 3 on the right. That way you can kind of see where, you know, your pages is. And then I'll do another number thing where it's just straight down. And I'll, you know, be like intro, and I'll either do splash page or whatever. And I'll do that as like a sentence in between. Maybe if it's like a big dialogue scene, I'll like, extend like 2 or 3 pages. Like, oh, they're gonna be chatting for like a bit because something happened, whatever. And it's a very rough outline. I take that into like, obviously Word or whatever. That one sentence, I'll then write a whole paragraph of like, this is everything happening in the page. I'll reread that paragraph, and about every sentence or two where it feels like an action beat, I'll hit space and enter, and then that's kind of how I break out my panels.
Right. Yeah, because you're right.
So,
you have to think of your pages
paragraph
as the main action happening in the panel and stuff, right? So you gotta decide on a lot of, and that's where I kind of like go back and forth too, right? Is like kind of, it's like when you're directing a movie, you're moving the camera around, you're trying to figure out like what's gonna look best from what vantage point and what's gonna make sense to the reader on the page, and yeah, you gotta.
And on like action scenes, I try to do 2 to 3 panels for the most part. If it's big sweeping action, like power hits and power shots, because I just feel like 2 to 3 panels, it gives you that epic scale. Now if you're doing like a bunch of like Daredevil-esque, hand-to-hand fighting, then you do a lot more panels and stuff like that. Because you're doing like multiple strikes at once. And it kind of depends on the artist. Or you can kind of do like, still do 3 panels, but you have that like old school like Steve Ditko where you had like Spider-Man, where you have like the faded out silhouette like here, here, and here, but the character's like here, like solid, where you're like, okay, so he was here, they did a punch, kick, and it's all on one panel, but it's like 4 different shots.
I love that. I love that stuff. I'm actually looking at a lot of those old techniques, and like my book's going to have thought balloons in it. I don't care if modern comics don't have thought bubbles anymore. They're overdone in the past, but I find that you can actually get a lot of storytelling done through thought balloons. It doesn't have to all be captions, and I kind of like that old school feel. And like you said, yeah, doing action sequences as like a superimposed kind of actions in the panel or in the splash are really nice. And they were still doing stuff like that in the 90s and stuff, right? It was just more downplayed. You just don't see it now.
Yeah, and then you also want to kind of remember like, and again, like how I said I'll write a paragraph and break it up and kind of do my panel count. I'll also go, all right, well, how do I want the reader to feel? Like, do I want them to slow down? If so, I'll keep the panel count as how it is. Maybe I'll try to elaborate and like add panel count or whatever, to slow it down, or maybe go, okay, well, maybe I can add some speech, etc. Because that I don't want to use the word bog down, but it slows down a little bit.
Right. Well, there's the difference between two, like slowing down how. Yeah, like if you add dialogue, yes, you're slowing down how quickly they get through the page, but you're not necessarily, but then also slowing down, using less panels with less dialogue can make the scene seem slower as well.
Yep.
Like there's a weird visual language to it all. And it's like, sometimes like I haven't really been doing too many thumbnails yet, but I'm finding I'm going to have to like really sketch out a lot of these things before I commit to sending it to the artist, right? Because I want to make sure that all this stuff actually reads like how I'm intending. It's one thing when you see it in a script or a sentences, but you really have to kind of like visualize it as a comic page. And even if you're not an artist, just do little stick figures and stuff like that and get your page flow down, because that's really what comics are all about. Like all the great comics have a really dynamic sense to the panels and how the story is told through the panels and stuff. So I'm just trying to keep that all in mind. And it's tough when you're first doing it, right? Because it's kind of a language that you don't really speak yet. So you got to really consciously think about it. And I'm looking at other comics to kind of, draw in inspiration and stuff like that and try to, okay, how did they do this? And hoping not to copy it.
That, what I would also do is grab your favorite comics, right? From your favorite writers.
Right.
Or at least like the ones that Not saying you're gonna copy them, right? But definitely the ones where
just
you're
to
like,
analyze
hey,
them.
I want my comic to feel similar to this.
Oh no,
comic.
I've gone through and done panel counts on pages. I've done, looked at where the page turns are. I've actually even done dialogue count, like how many words are on each of these pages and each of the balloons and stuff, right? So that when you're actually writing the dialogue, you can have it feel, like you said, pacing it the right way and either slowing it down or speeding it up depending. And you're always having to like edit stuff. Like that's the one thing I find is very rarely do I think right up until I give the script over, I'm probably going to be going over this stuff back and forth and taking little things out or changing little moments, right? Because it's both being a perfectionist, but also like realizing that you can do anything on the page, but you also can't just do anything, right? Like you've really got to have an idea of what you're trying to get across and then paring that down to its most concise, because that's the other thing too. Working on the series Bible, I found is helping a lot because I'm actually planning out a lot of backstory and kind of like future potential story ideas through the series Bible, like what can and can't happen in the world, what is, and my world is like, it's basically our world, but just with certain historical events being different. So it kind of has that historical fiction type of feel where certain things are the same, but other things like, well, for one thing, so North America is basically known as Yokota, the United Continent of the Americas. So US, Canada, and Mexico in the mid 40s basically all merged as a super union, basically as a superpower. And so the entire history of the world from that point forward is basically slightly different. It's still pretty much the same. A lot of the same places exist, but just the kind of different geopolitical atmosphere that would create now, where you've got this kind of supranational parliament that actually, so Canada still exists as a country, the US still exists as a country, Mexico still exists as a country, but they're completely allied in terms of their military budgets, in terms of their social spending, almost like a European Union attempted, but done from like that 40s and 50s aplomb where they kind of got it right. And actually, in some sense, the military industrial complex did not become as far out of bounds as it currently exists in the world, where everything is about black budgets. A lot of the stuff going on is very out in the open. And so it's interesting where there's going to be a lot of cool things to learn about this world and cool historical events to kind of like look through as a lens, like how is it different? How did this change in this event, kind of impact these people and impact this world? But it also lets you kind of tell a story, in a sense of like, if this one thing had changed, what kind of impact would that have had in our own world, not just on these people in this story, right? So you can kind of have your metaphors and your anyway, but that's where it's when you have a series Bible, it helps in a lot of ways, but then it also makes it much harder to tie down. Like you got to be very focused on what is that story that you're trying to tell in that specific issue or in that origin, right? Like you can kind of almost go too far. Like, okay, I got this and I got that and I got this and I got that, and I want to get to this at some point. And you really have to kind of really almost like, okay, you have all these things, but you can't reveal them. Certain things have to stay secret. Again, that's why I kind of want to play with time, because I'm realizing some of this stuff makes more sense in today's 2020 atmosphere. But if I base the story in the mid 90s, I don't need to get into certain things, and I can kind of limit the story and keep it basic. Even not having cell phones be a big thing. I've always kind of liked that about movies, where like you watch an old movie before cell phones existed, and there's certain plot elements that can happen because the characters are out of communication, right? They're not near a phone, so they can't just instantly call each other and get help or tell each other what's going on or whatever. And even if you don't see that stuff happen in modern movies, you always think of those things like, oh, well, why did this happen? Because that character would have just called them and told them this was going on or whatever, right? So it kind of takes you out of the movie, or you start punching holes in the story. But if you make it take place in another time frame without certain technological aspects, there's a whole subclass of plots and storylines and things that will work better, right? So I'm kind of seeing like, okay, yeah, that makes more sense. I don't want just the comic to feel like it's from the 90s. I actually want the story to take place in the 90s, and it's going to serve the story better. And then, I can actually, when this character's arc happens and when they kind of achieve certain goals, they actually are going to be an older person. Because that's another thing I don't like about comics, is where they all just magically, like, I know it's because temporaneously the comics are coming out every month, so there's no need to manually age these characters up month to month, right? Like 10 years ago, it's just like The Simpsons. Like 10 years goes by, Bart still looks the same because, they just draw him the same all the time. It's the same thing with Spider-Man or whoever. They just age up very, very slowly. Whereas I'm going to make the key arcs of the story are going to take place a certain amount of...
Unless you're John Constantine.
And some of that too
was
is like...
a cool different aspect of what made the original Hellblazer, is they actually aged in real time. So even when they took like years in between like issues, they were like, all right, well, it's been like 2 years or 5 years, so he actually aged from like the 80s to like the 2000s. Well, like by the end, he looked like, he was in his like...
Yeah, but they still retcon it, because when they did New 52 Constantine,
like when they
young again and stuff,
New
right?
52, they destroyed all of that, but like the original Vertigo,
right?
Hellblazer, like that was one of the more unique things. Was he was like the only comic character to age real time from like the 80s to 2010.
Well, you could even in some sense say even Swamp Thing kind of aged, because his design went from being more simple and sleek to being, once Alan Moore got his hands on him, and he became more of an elemental and having mastery over the green and all this, he became more, gnarled and old and kind of just, so like, visually there's a way to kind of tell the age of the character through how they're portrayed and stuff. And you're right, they don't really do it that often in comics, but when they do, it really works. And I like what Tucci is doing with She. Like, he's relaunching She, and he's like, yeah, it's 20 years later. The character's 20 years older. And, it's like, I mean, it's been done before, but I really like that, where creators aren't worried about like aging up their characters, right? Or passing the baton to, to their kid or to some younger, counterpart or something like that. Because that's eventually what I want to kind of do too, right? In this bigger world.
Mm-hmm.
You focus on certain characters at certain times, when it makes sense in the history of that world, that person is at that time and place where they're the person that matters. And then 5 years later, it's a different character. And, it's like, whereas in Marvel Universe, all these characters kind of have to all coexist, and they've all got to maintain the same, kind of relevance to the overall world and the same relevance to each other. They, at certain times, Tony Stark is more influential than Peter Parker, and then they switch with each other or whatever. But I mean, sometimes a character might only be around for a couple of years, and that's their heyday, and then they kind of just go into retirement, or they go fade into the background and become like a smaller scale hero. They're not like saving the world every single year.
Yeah.
But I think that's the ComicsGate thing too in general, right? Is you can just tell more personal stories, more kind of pared down stories. You're not really thinking of it like, okay, I got to keep this character alive for 10 years and milk everything out of them every month. And I'm just trying to think like a good 100-page to 150-page story for a character, and what kind of art can you have them go through, and then just move on to something new. And the way you keep that all joined together is you just have them all take place in the same universe, and maybe they interact a bit. Maybe they interact with the world more.
You just do.
You don't have to. Yeah,
like Jason Brubaker, like he said, on what was it? Come Get Some. With like the skits team, he was like, he's like, I can only really stand to work on a project for like 2 years, and then I want to do a different project.
Right.
Which is why The Mind was only like 2 volumes. He was like, if I was smart, I could have continued that. I would still be doing that. But he was like, but the story was told, in my opinion. It was done. 2 volumes, and then he did Sithra, which Sithra was 6 books, and each of his books are like 100-something pages. I think the smallest one was like 98, and then it went from there from like 100 to 40, what like average for each Sithra book. And now he's doing Phobos, which is like a 300-page monster, which, holy crap.
Damn.
So did you want to do this toxic... Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. I just noticed that toxic masculinity thing you threw in chat.
Oh, yeah. I took that test. I got a 72, a 44, a 63, a 29, and a 52.
I tried doing that, and for some reason it just showed an error code for me.
Yeah, I just went to tests. If you just click on the test button, just click on that test button at the top menu, and then you'll see the toxic test on the right-hand side. I know the link was dead or something.
Apparently, I am more arrogant than the average person, which, I mean, I can understand that.
It's not wrong on that.
Yep.
Let's see.
I'll put it on my screen here. So yeah, toxic masculinity test, question 1 of 35. A man should always have final say about decisions in his relationship or marriage. Okay, I see. So it's a sliding scale.
Yeah. And you can just stay in the middle if you know you.
Yeah, I mean, some of these things are... I find they're almost a little too general, because it's kind of like there might be situations where it'd be, 100% I'm going to have the final say on that, but these other issues I don't really care. So then you kind of think, well, okay, I should just leave it in the middle, but then it's also like...
Yeah, I more or less went like very few things with like a high disagree or a high agree on, but yeah. Which the homophobia part, I was like, yeah, I expected that one to be kind of low. Just because of who and what I am.
Alright, go ahead and do this.
Guys should act strong even if they feel nervous or scared inside.
A man who talks a lot about his worries, fears, and problems shouldn't really get respect.
But the funny thing is, J Money was like a 53, 41, 62, 54, 53. Like, he was very, very even kill on like being about 50% higher. And then Will on the heteronormacy was like a high, like 83%. And homophobia was like a high 71%. I was like, ooh, Will.
Violence to get respect. See, there needs to be... That's what I mean. Some of these statements are a little
necessary. If necessary, which to that one, I put highly agree. I'm like, yo, if someone is fighting you, or if someone has done something where violence is definitely necessary, then yeah, it should.
Violence should. I also think it should be a last resort, right? Like, kind of the issue going on in today's society is like the people who are at most risk of coming under violence are the ones who are causing most of it. So it's kind of like they're forcing people's hands, right? Like all the BLM stuff is kind of crazy because they're supposedly fighting against indiscriminate violence against black people, specifically black men, at the hands of police. But at the same time, they're willing to kind of put themselves in a lot of those situations. They're not willing to police their own community and their own, their own brothers and sisters and things and people in their close families, right? So it's like it kind of forces things to get to that point. And then you kind of like, I don't know, it's just a lot of these questions are so simplistic, it's hard to really...
Yeah, I feel like the whole thing is kind of designed to make everyone have look toxic when you see your results.
Yeah, I'm doing it right now just to see how toxic I am.
I mean, you're the worst. You're like cancer in human form, Fade. Everyone knows this.
Yes, finally I can destroy a host from the inside now. Like the rest of these freaking nut bags that freaking
You can easily do that with cyanide.
Who's cyanide?
I would be willing to steal $1 million if I knew I would never get caught.
Oh yeah,
again, it's very loaded. Yeah, of course.
I agreed to that. Like, didn't even have to think twice on
I
that.
think that's one of my reasons why I got a 72 on the whole.
See, and I'm completely against stealing when it comes to like just basic things and stuff like that. Like, even if I was starving hungry, I probably wouldn't steal a loaf of bread because I'd realize, it's something that you kind of have to work for things like that. But at the same time, like, okay, $1 million and it's so theoretical. Like, how do you not go along with it? Because it's so unrealistic. It's kind of like that fantasy of like, oh, you find a briefcase full of money or something down by the river and you manage to like sneak it home and no one sees you, and you open it up and it's got like 200 grand in it or something like that, right? And it's like, yeah.
I mean, I've seen No Country for Old Men.
But some of these scenarios are so unrealistic. Like it's like 1 in 10 trillion or something. Like it's never going to happen. So on some level, like if it does happen, it's kind of the universe telling you something like, hey, I gotta take advantage of this because whoever's the next person to come across this is going to take it anyway, right? Like this is I'm not really stealing from a person. I'm just finding something. But I mean, that's the thing, right? You don't know where that $1 million is coming from.
Well,
like, is that $1 million sitting on the back of a bank truck, or is it, like I said, down in a ditch by the side of a river or something? And
or for No Country for Old Men, it's both. It's in an old truck down by the river,
right?
Surrounded by bodies, but just so you know, if you get that suitcase, Sugar will hunt you down.
Well, and that's what I mean. Like some of those scenarios are so, like even in a movie, it's almost like you have to make it more extreme in order to get the person to.
I get a lot of pleasure from owning expensive, luxurious goods. That's one of the questions on here.
It is.
Yeah, I'm going too slow because this feels like a high school test or something.
Yeah, I'm trying not to.
I wouldn't be tempted to use counterfeit money, not even if I were sure I could get away with it.
I'd use it.
See, I know enough about counterfeit money that there's no point because you almost always will get caught. It's almost impossible unless you can actually make real money. You can't really make counterfeit money. Like it's always going to look really fake no matter what. And you'll eventually get caught. Like you might get away with one bill or one scenario, but eventually it's going to catch up with you. At least nowadays. Maybe 50 years ago you could get away with it, but I wouldn't pretend to be like so. Yeah, a lot of pleasure. Disagree. Yeah, we're just boring the shit out of everybody now by doing this test, but
yeah, but hopefully we'll have some funny.
You'll know how bad you are as a person.
Yeah,
I have mocked manly women or girly men with derogatory sexual slurs. Disagree. I mean, well, no, when I was younger, being around gay people makes me uncomfortable. Disagree. Unless they're making me feel uncomfortable. Husband shouldn't have to do household chores. Slightly disagree. Real man should have as many sexual partners as he can. That's probably a middle ground. I get angry more frequently than most people know. Disagree. Having a lot of money is especially disagree.
I would pretend to like someone just to get them to do favors for me. Dutton agrees to that. I don't.
Again, it's like so nuanced, right? Because it's one of those things where is it going to be a mutual thing? Like you trust or know the person well enough that there'll be some reciprocal element to it, or is it more like you're taking advantage of someone, right? Like
this question.
It all comes down to personal conscience. Like, what are you trying to get out of the relationship with the person, right? Are you a more giving person, or do you want everything to be like even Steven, right? And if you do something for someone, you want a favor back, right? And I tend to be the type where, yeah, I like when someone can help me out with a favor, great. But if I'm willing to do a favor for someone else, I don't really expect anything in return. It's just, that's the thing, is if I get the feeling like someone's more reciprocal, then I'm more likely to do them a favor. Whereas if I feel like now they're never going to help me out, then I just less likely to actually help them out. But I might still help them out. Depends on what they need.
I find this question funny. I would never accept a bribe, not even if it were very large.
Yeah, it's kind of too vague, right?
No. My mind went to a very dirty place.
Well, hey, to each his own.
Agree.
Yeah, agree.
Yeah, I would disagree on that, but still. Let's see. Deceitfulness and arrogance, 56%. Trait anger, 56%. Heteronormativity, 46. Homophobia, 8. And total masculinity, 42%.
Are you gay?
Nope.
Bi?
Nope.
I'm more homophobia than you, and I'm bi.
Well then. That's funny.
Like I'm at 29. You're like, you're at 8%. I'm like at 29. I'm like, Fade's more accepting of my community than I am.
I don't even know how I did that either. I wasn't really paying attention.
Like I wasn't trying to call you out or anything. I was just like, dang.
I just find it funny.
Also, John,
I'm straight. Yeah, I'm straight.
Right?
I'm straight.
Yeah. You're less homo. God damn it.
Well, see, the thing is, I'm very what do you call it? I'm not bi at all. Like, there's that thing where people say like nobody's 100% straight or whatever. But the way I equate it is kind of like aesthetically, I can appreciate like an attractive man. Like if I see a handsome guy or whatever, I'm not like unwilling to accept like, okay, that's a good looking guy, but it's not like I would want to sleep with him. It's more like, hey, I would like to look like that, or I can see what women see in him.
Yep.
So, but I'm just very secure in myself. Like I don't think I'm that
like the least toxic of all. Which honestly, I'm not surprised.
I think it's age too. Like as you get older too, you just kind of realize, man, you don't need all the drama.
Just so that way, we're showing answers. Hold on, let me go to my Chrome tab. That way
Man, I feel like I'm much toxic than you guys.
So heteronormativity is kind of like how much you fit the standard of your gender, right?
More or less, yeah.
I'm not sure what mine is.
Yeah, because I like masculine concepts and things like that. Like I think men.
You know what? You're actually on average with. You know what? You are more on average with the typical man than.
Yeah, like I'm more
I have my thing on screen
but
share.
less homophobic. So whatever, but everything else is pretty much dead average, right? Like total toxic masculinity only 30%. Damn, I wanted to be at least 50%.
Oh, I'm way above you on all those. Go to mine.
Oh yeah.
56,
nice.
56, 46, 8, and then 42.
Yeah, but you're low on homophobia, right? So that's good. I mean, you're kind of compensating.
It's just like then y'all will be like, holy crap, you know what? Maybe we should not talk to Dutton anymore. That guy's toxic. That guy's we should just accept gatekeeping once and just kind of kick him out.
I've been friends with like gay guys and gay women like my entire life. Like even when I was a kid, I was always friends with like the weird freaks and the kind of the kids that didn't fit in and stuff. So even like kids before they knew they were gay, I kind of like you just knew something was up. But I was like, whatever, you're cool. Like I'm kind of a weirdo too. So I accept people.
Me and my sister, I've known about gays and I've known about bi people. So.
Well, that's just it. Like it all comes down to like, your own interactions with people. As long as they're not trying to like get down my pants or anything like that. I'm cool with it.
Yeah.
Just don't try to rape me and we'll all be good.
Yeah, exactly.
Share my screen. gonna be funny.
Hold on. Damn, how are you 29%?
Wow,
right?
Deceitful bastard.
Damn. I mean, I'm not shocked by that, considering how many times he tries to extort us to buy his books, so...
And plus, I think on some of my questions, I stayed in the middle a little more often than I would have. I just didn't want to think about it too hard, so I kind of just, whatever, 50-50, and...
That's what I mostly did, too.
Well, okay,
I went through and spent more time.
More of arrogance than anything, because... I feel like I'm less arrogant in my age now, but man, when I was like a teenager and stuff, it was
off the charts.
Oh, it was like Conor McGregor level before Conor McGregor was a thing.
It's always like that when you're younger. I was the same thing. I was a bit of a scrapper when I was younger. Like I would get in people's faces. I would start fights I couldn't finish. So yeah.
In art school, I would sign my pieces like my senior year as the great one. No lie. I signed it all as the great one. And the teacher was like, I'm going to take off 5 points. And I was like, I guess I'll just have a 95 then.
Sometimes there's a good reason for arrogance, though. Like I think arrogance can be a positive quality, right? Depending, like it's always, all these kind of things are always seen as either positive or negative, but there's a lot of qualities that can straddle the line, or it can be, again, it depends on the nuance of the situation, right? And who the other people that you're interacting with are, because sometimes, like you said, if you're talking Conor McGregor, you're talking UFC, you've got to be arrogant. All those guys have to have arrogant personalities in order to saddle up with one another, right? Like if one guy is way less arrogant than the next, he's not going to go very far in MMA. He's not going to have the personality type. He's not going to have the appeal to the mass audience. He's not going to have the intimidation factor with the other fighters. But then later in life, once he's retired or he's not fighting anymore, like he can kind of chill out more, and it just depends on what you're doing in that point in your life. So high school is like a big part of that, right? It's like you kind of got to fight for dominance in school. And
what I found funny on the test, there's like a racism test and sexual orientation test? Sexual test, that's what it was.
Right.
So.
Yeah, there's a bunch of them there. Eh?
Yeah, I might have to do those for fun later.
I'm gonna laugh if it says you're more gay than I am.
I will laugh so freaking hard on that.
I will laugh so hard. I will be like,
well, see, that's the funny thing now too, right? Is like whether you're straight, gay, or bi, that's kind of like chocolate, vanilla, and strawberry compared to like, you know what I mean? Like that's, Neapolitan is kind of seen as pretty basic for an ice cream flavor compared to all the other flavors they got out there now. Well, it's the same thing with all these gender identities and sexual identities. Like, people can be fluid, right? So it's okay, I'm switching back and forth, or the way they're pushing like that cuties on Netflix, right? It's like they're letting all the PDF files out there fucking get their shit on, and it's like, I don't know, man, like there's too much stuff like changing too quickly, and I think people are going to go back to basics pretty soon. Like,
yep, we're just going to have like a complete shutdown and restart.
Well, what'll happen is just like whether you're vanilla straight, vanilla gay, or vanilla bi, or whatever you want to call it, vanilla straight, chocolate gay, and strawberry bi, everyone's just going to accept that like it's all part of one ice cream. It's all part of the Neapolitan flavor, right? And it's just, that'll be like the 90% element, because right now they try to say, oh, well, like 7
they're trying
or 10%
to
or
segregate everyone by that, unfortunately.
Well, that's what I mean. Like, it's just, I don't really care. Like, what somebody else does in the bed. As long as they're not hurting anybody and they're not actually into anything so weird that it's going to, like, disturb their life or disturb their their way of living kind of thing. Like they're not going to have hang-ups and they're not going to force it on other people and they're not going to make their entire life about it. Because that's kind of one of the things I think is detrimental, is that people have kind of made their sexual identity or their gender identity kind of the only thing that's interesting about them. But then it almost becomes like a psychological hang-up, where it's the only thing that they've got going. And I just want to see a person as a person. I don't need to know what the hell they're doing in their bedroom.
All right, so like this is I think this is why I scored so high is you've heard the Dave Chappelle joke of the LGBT all being in a car and all being different people.
Yeah.
All right, so that is like completely spot on, and I realized like there is gatekeeping in the community. Like, you're not gay enough, or maybe you shouldn't write gay characters if you're not gay. And it's like, well, some people write gay characters, and it kind of helps them open up and going, oh, you know what? Yeah, no, I am gay because I am actually, writing this. I feel like I'm opening up, I'm accepting who I am, whatever. Now there are gay people. It's like, if you're not gay, you shouldn't write gay people. And I'm like, that's dumb. But then I'm also like, most gay stories are fucking trash. I hate LGBT writers.
Well, it's like I was saying, it's because they focus on that stuff, right? Instead of it just being part of the background of the character.
They write two stories mostly. It's a I'm coming out story, which hey, that dog's not mine.
Yeah, it's mine.
In case Richard ever watches this, that dog wasn't mine.
It was mine.
Sure.
It's either I'm coming out as gay story, which I get, like that's very important. That's very hard. Like that's probably one of the biggest things in the community, what you have to do in life. But fucking goddamn, like
it's been done a million different times, a million different ways, and you can't really get anything from it.
What if we wrote this, but as gay? Like, let's do Romeo and Juliet, but as gay. Let's do this, but as I'm like, no, let's not. Let's not take classic literature and just do let's do gay Sherlock Holmes. No, I don't care. No. Stop it.
What I find funny is how everyone's doing like this whole prom thing lately. Have you guys noticed that?
No. Yeah. Well, I mean, I've seen it in different.
It's mostly a animated TV trope now.
Yeah.
Of prom, and it's so bad. It's so dumb.
It is.
School dances were a thing, not middle school prom. School dances. I went to school dances.
I didn't go to any, and I'm still fine with it.
I probably couldn't even write about some of the stuff that happened at my school dances. See, that's another thing I realized too, is like, yes, there's always a generation gap, but like there's a reason why people of all generations, for the most part, think like, okay, the 70s, 80s, and 90s were a lot cooler, and it was just more fun to be around during those times, because man, the shit you got away with and the stuff that just people accepted, you know what I mean? Like, it's weird that in current time, people are more accepting of like different things, but they're also more they kind of police everything more in a sense. I don't know how to explain it. I guess it could be the social media aspect. Like, like people aren't private anymore, but they don't really get away with as much weirdness. Whereas back in the day, things were a lot more private. Like things didn't spread around as much, but you did crazier stuff as a result, because you knew it would never really leave your peer group, or would never leave your school or your neighborhood or whatever, right? Whereas now it's like anything you do could go around the world in 5 minutes, right? So people are a lot more conscious of like how they project themselves, how they project their image, what types of encounters and incidents they get involved in. And it's kind of, everything is a more public, more kind of worldwide event, even if you just do something small. Whereas in the past, I mean, like, I knew guys that like fucking shot people, never got caught. I like literally blew a guy up off his bike with a quarter stick of dynamite, driving in a car, and like never got caught. I probably should admit that on video. but people would do all sorts of crazy stuff, and like, and getting into bars when I was underage, and people don't really seem to be doing that nowadays. Like, I don't know, it's just times were better. And like, yeah, school dances, people doing all fucking sorts of shit, whether they're doing acid in like junior high and stuff. And I wasn't really as mixed up in that stuff, but it was like, people knew it was going on. And I don't know, just people were less innocent almost back then than they are now. But maybe that's just me. You guys are still, not like super young, right? I'm sure you guys did all sorts of crazy stuff in school too, but
I was mostly a keep to yourself kid.
Yeah. But I mean, you probably heard stories or knew people or whatever, right? Like,
so in middle school, I did a great prank on the principal. This was fantastic. So his room was acoustic, like his office. Because I was one of the people, like, like how you have one kid working like the office or whatever.
Yeah.
I somehow was that kid.
Just because you were always down in the office anyway, or?
Yeah, I was smart. I was bored. So it's whatever. It was like a free thing to do.
Right.
So, but I discovered like, oh snap, the principal's office is like very acoustic. Well, this is actually kind of cool. Because my cousin, like, and he's technically my mom's cousin, he's a sheriff or a detective. And he's got like the like sheriff type walkie-talkies.
Yeah.
Like the high duty ones.
Yeah.
So I put one inside the plant, like the potted plant in the principal's office, where you couldn't really find it and stuff.
And was this to spy and listen to him, or to put stuff over the speaker and
just put stuff over the speaker?
Okay.
Like I put in, like, because he was a very Christian man, a highly Christian man, like extremely Christian man. And I would be like randomly throughout the day, this is the voice of God. This is the voice of God. And like,
so he somehow didn't recognize your voice, right?
No, he did not. And it was fantastic because there was one day where I kept doing it, by like the fourth day, like he freaked out.
I just doxed myself.
He literally destroyed his entire office trying to find Oh no! Look, there's other people besides my face.
I know. Sorry, I had to do that.
Look, he's got more chins than me and John combined.
Oh yeah, I know.
Yeah, like 3 hiding under here. You just can't see.
Oh yeah. That's part of the family gene there.
Yeah, I did a junior high prank where I'd go to my buddy's house for lunch.
That's a chin sensor boy. I get it.
Oh yeah, that's why I let the beard grow.
I go to my buddy's house for lunch in junior high just because it was close by and I didn't have to, I'd usually bring a lunch to school, but rather than sit at school and eat it, I would just go over to my buddy's and watch, TV or hang out. And of course, his dad was a fisherman, so he had a freezer full of fish. So one day, I think it was me and a couple other buddies, but not my buddy Wade, whose house it was. So he didn't even know we stole a fish out of his dad's freezer. Take it to school, go down into the basement, had the changing rooms for the gyms, plus the like woodworking and metalworking shop and all the storage and stuff. And there were the like the tiles, the ceiling tiles, right? Like it had the drop ceiling. So you could just literally lift the ceiling tiles and throw stuff up there. So we took this fish out of the wrapping or whatever, right? Because it was all vacuum sealed. We cut it out of there and like tossed it in the corner of one of the ceilings or whatever downstairs. And it didn't stink for a couple of weeks, but after a couple of weeks, that smell went through the entire school, and they literally let all of the students out for like 4 days straight while they fumigated and figured out where the hell this thing was. And we got away with it. We never got caught. But, eventually other students realized it was us, because I think some of us talked to certain people, and then it kind of spread around. And we were more popular just because people got 4 days off of school in the middle of the school year. for no reason, and nobody had to do any homework. Like, it was literally like people showed up one morning, and like within an hour they're like, "Hey, you kids are all going home. We gotta like, figure out this thing." Like, they thought it was some sort of biohazard or something going on, and it took them like days to find it, from what we understand, because they literally had to go through an entire school, through behind everything, under everything. And I guess we just put it right in the right spot where there was some sort of air intake, or where the vents hit it good, and it just brought the smell throughout the entire school. And yeah, that was a lot of fun. And that was just one thing. I mean, we took hairspray, the old alcohol hairspray, and like covered the entire change room and lockers and everything with it, and then lit the room on fire. And so there was just like blue flame everywhere for about 2 minutes. And we thought all the wood benches and everything were going to catch on fire, but no, it just all kind of burned off. And we had like random people like popping their head in and just realize, like, walking into a wall of flames, basically. We could have burned down the entire school if we weren't careful, but it's like, why not?
Oh, by the way, Dutton, I took the test. I'm more bi than you.
What are you two waiting for, you guys? Come on, like, must be a love connection.
I'm joking with you. I'm not.
He's not my type.
I am not, and he is not mine.
Okay. So you're saying you have a type then, Fit?
I have a certain, what's the word?
He's not on your bucket list?
Admire male thing? I don't know. But I can tell you I'm into women.
Okay.
Oh, have you seen Archer?
Oh, yeah.
Now I feel like when Archer pretended to be gay, like, what? I'm not good enough? I'm not good enough? You don't want to see with me? Come on with me. I'm a man.
Yeah, hold on. Let me get my thing set up.
I love that guy's voice too. That does Archer. He's perfect
H.
for
John
it.
Benjamin. He only does one voice.
He does. I know, but he's also on Bob's Burgers, and like, he's so iconic.
There we go. That's where I'm at, right there.
Okay. Well, yeah, that's pretty far in the corner. I wouldn't like a little up on the bisexual axis, but like, that's what I mean. Like, if you're too extreme in any direction, then you're either not being honest with yourself, or you're just kind of like not secure in yourself, right? Like,
I didn't even know there was other tests.
Yeah.
On that one. Located at?
I was gonna try and do another one and try to make it so that way my answers were all the way up over here in the bi, just to freak you out, Dutton. But I couldn't do it. It just went back to this screen, so I was like, damn it.
Okay, I've seen the left-right test before.
Yeah.
Oh my god, I give up. I'm not even gonna.
There's the dark core test. That looks interesting. This test measures whether there's a dark core to your personality.
And there's a Rorschach test.
Mine.
Yeah.
The Rorschach test. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, we'll have to do some of these on a future show or something like that.
Yeah, just for the hell of it,
Just do like a different one each episode or something at the end.
Yeah, that would be fun.
I say we all do the Rorschach test when. So look at 8 plots.
I already bookmarked the site, so Rorschach test. Where is that? I found the racism test.
I'm pretty sure you're very racist, man.
I wouldn't doubt it.
I'm gonna go about 10 more minutes, so we'll.
I'm actually gonna head out because it's late.
Oh man, there are.
I did have a subject I did want to talk about, but I'm like, that would probably take more than 10 minutes, so I'll just table it.
All right.
What were you thinking?
Did you hear about Disney's Mulan?
Oh, yeah.
Wait. It's not even allowed to be advertised in China when they 100% try to make it for China.
Yep.
China won't let them advertise it.
Yeah.
Because of all the bad blowback of, oh no, you said a thank you to our concentration camp. The rest of the world hates us, so we're not going to let you advertise it.
It doesn't matter. The movie wasn't going to make their money back anyway, even with China. Anyway, it wasn't going to be that popular.
Well, the whole thing was 100% made just for China. Like, they brought in people who were like, oh, well, China like this, China like that. Well, It was 100%
funny, even
made.
China didn't even want
Yeah,
it.
but it's still in that get woke go broke matrix, right?
Yep.
Like that's the thing, right?
Oh,
like,
yeah.
it doesn't matter
Definitely.
how you slice it. If that's your point, then your project is going to fail for the most part. If you're
I
trying
just think it's 100% funny when it's like, we are 100% China coded to this.
You know what that's going
We
to do,
can't
right?
even advertise in this.
There's a difference between the Chinese people and the Chinese government, right? So like the Chinese Communist Party is not the same necessarily as the population at large. So what I think this is going to do is you're just going to see the pirate market for it spring. Like it'll probably be more popular now in China than it would have been had they marketed it normally, because now when the people are told you can't see this movie, they're going to want to see it even more. The fact that it is about, you know, a Chinese character, Chinese history, well, I guess it's not true history, but you know what I mean, like a historical setting for China, it is going to interest them to that level, I think, you know, because they want to, it's that whole representation thing, like whether we admit it or not, like there is some element of truth to that idea of wanting to see your culture and your country and your background represented. Everybody's, you know, interested in that kind of thing, even if it's something simple like, oh, this story takes place in my neighborhood or my city or whatever. Like you might not even be drawn to that story, but you at least are interested, like, oh, it takes place in my neck of the woods, so I'll give it a go. Like I'll give it a chance and see if it's any good. So I think they're going to check it out, but you know, the movie's going to fail anyway, because like right now is not a good time to put movies out streaming or otherwise.
So I will find out tomorrow if someone likes Unstitch or not.
Did you already like preview a copy or something for someone, or?
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's like we're still doing like a little bit of editing, but it's mostly done. It's because we've already lettered, we've already edited, we've already re-lettered. My editor's kind of like looking through to make sure everything is, you know, double correct. Like, you know, a swipe through. And if anything, it's like maybe one or two things, maybe that like Eric still missed or whatever. And then, you know, we letter things, and we've changed, you know, some dialogue or whatever and moved dialogue around. But I have sent it to one person who's a creator, and unfortunately, he's been given medicine from like a dentist, so he was like, I've been drugged all day and napping all day. I haven't read it yet, but I'm actually about to in 10 minutes. And I'm like, oh.
That sucks.
Well, if he falls asleep in the middle of it, it'll be for that reason, not because the story was slow. It's because he's on bed.
I'm like, you didn't have to tell me like 10 minutes, because now I'm going to be up for like the next, I don't know, like hour or so just going, how bad is
So at what point were you in like developing stuff before you let other people see it? What would be your advice in terms of like showing, like, do you have to have script pages done or outline stuff? Like, where were you at?
I'd say script pages.
Yeah.
And
mostly just with other artists, or?
Well, I sent it to my 5 most assholeless friends who I know will like
rip it
100% won't sugarcoat anything.
Right.
Because if something sucks, they'll let me know it sucks. And in fact, I've written a story before, sent it to one of them, and they were like, yo, what the fuck is this? This is like some M. Night Shyamalan bullshit. Like, not with a whole, like, it's a twist. It's really bad and dumb.
Right.
I was like, well, I mean, you could just.
It's like the old O. Henry stories or Tales from the Crypt, right? They always have like the twist ending or whatever. It's been done a million times.
It wasn't a twist ending, but you know, it was just like bad. And M. Night's like the one person I identify as like the worst creator ever. Him and Bendis.
Yeah, but even they had like a bit of heyday. You know what I mean? Like every creator has their moment in the sun.
Like if you write enough, you can write one good thing.
Yeah.
Right.
Like if you write enough, you write one good thing.
Joker creators too. Like I still think there's like an art form to kind of not being the best at something, but still being able to be a commercial artist or commercial creator and managing to like you know, that's the thing. For all their flaws, their movies still make money. They're still able to have a career and stuff. And even though people kind of give them shit all the time, it's like they still manage to make it work. And they still, you know, like even Shyamalan, like after Airbender there, he still managed to come back and like do some decent stuff afterwards. So it's like, just because you have that one failure doesn't mean that you're necessarily your career's over. So I kind of always look at that as inspiration. You know, it's like, not everybody's going to be Spielberg or freaking Tolkien or whatever when they start writing something or producing something, right?
Yeah, I'm not expecting Unstitched to be like groundbreaking, a groundbreaking story that it changes and redefines comic as we know it. Like it's
right.
Not made that.
Well, and you got to be happy. Like that's what I'm finding is just as long as I'm keeping my goals in mind of like, what kind of story do I not only want it to be, but what would I be happy to read if I came across this story?
Yeah.
You know, and just keep that in mind, right? And just as long as you entertain yourself or someone who has your same kind of taste or your friends who you know that, okay, they like this stuff or whatever, then just go for that. And yeah, you're not going to please everybody, but you'll probably please a certain percentage.
Yeah.
Like, yo, I took it yesterday around 6 in the afternoon or 6 p.m. And he's like, it's completely messed up my sleep schedule. I'm still kind of drowsy. I'm like, God damn, what the fuck kind of medicine they give you?
Yeah, I mean, if it's what painkillers and shit for dental shit, yeah, that depends on how sensitive you are too. Some people they eat that stuff like candy. Other people it's like I could never take T3s when I was younger. I would like cut them in half or quarters. Even though people I take 2 T3s for that or whatever. I'm like, no man, I'm just super sensitive to it. It would either knock me out or I'd get like dizzy and like be seeing double and shit like that just off a T3. So, but meanwhile, I have high pain tolerance, so I don't really need it anyway. So it's just kind of, it's your own metabolism, I guess, right? All right, well, I guess we'll cut it there because I'm going to go get some stuff done.
All right, man. Have a good one.
Yeah, you too. It's been fun chatting with everybody. So I guess on Saturday we'll all meet up whenever.
You know what? If you know any comic channels that do reviews, you know, because we are kind of getting like so close to being done, and we are pretty much at like, I would say at like 95. 97?
I'm probably gonna begin trying to do some comic reviews once I get my books.
I do want to send like, you know, like the Dropbox file while I, you know, format it and stuff. Just, you know, send the Dropbox and be like, hey, read the Dropbox. It's all there.
Are you thinking people within CG or even outside the CG community? Just
even
channels
outside.
in general. Yeah. Okay.
Oh, okay.
Just channels in general of like going, hey, do a review, you know. You can, if you liked it, mention the Indiegogo or the Kickstarter if the Kickstarter is still going at the time. That way people go, oh, this comic's actually really good. Well, I really like so-and-so's opinion. Let me grab that copy.
Okay.
I will definitely.
Rather than, you know.
Yeah, I'll remember
which some
that.
people might go, I'll review it whenever I have a physical copy. And I'm like, all right, that's cool. But, you know, when I do an early review, it's marketing strategy.
Yeah, it makes sense.
Yeah.
I mean, I have confidence in it, but then, you know, it is what
if I do it, though, I'd rather pay for, you know, it first and give you an honest review about it while paying for the product rather than just getting it for free.
Yeah, well, I mean, like if it sucks, if they think it sucks, which I mean, I know it's not going to be from the art standpoint because Laura's art is fucking killer. It would be from my standpoint of me failing as a writer, which I mean, I don't think I did too bad, especially for like my first comic. Especially like if you see how the art flows, and I'm like, I wrote that shit. That's why it flows like that.
Well, and it's so tough, right? Because obviously you're always going to think of your own stuff as like decent because you're releasing it. Like if you get to that point where like you're releasing it out into the world, it's got to be good enough in your own mind that you aren't going to be embarrassed by it, right? But at the same time, it's like even as a reviewer, like once you know someone or you know it's their first thing, I'm a lot more forgiving myself. Like I don't really get too critical with somebody when it's like their first foray into something. And I know that, and even if I try to be super hard on it, like I can't, it's physically impossible. I'm always like just much more giving them points for actually just getting it done, right? Because getting it done is half the battle anyway. So
that's why anyone who reviews it, I'm like, yeah, man, this is like my 5th comic. That way they don't have that, here's a newbie, let me go soft. Like, no. If something's an issue, hit it hard.
It is
that way
technically your first thing that you're releasing out into the wild, right? Regardless of what you tell them, or have you had anything? Yeah. So I mean,
this is legitimately my first thing out in the wild. Yeah. But if they ask, it's my 5th, and you ask me to cite sources. I'm like, you know that one comic? Just read Unstitch.
That's smart. Yeah, tell them it's like your 15th thing or whatever, and maybe that'll make them really honest.
Yeah. I just want to, if there's issues, they'll hit harder. And then I can go, okay, yep, I see what you're doing now. I see what you're talking about. Which, I know me as a writer, one of my biggest issues is grammar, just in general. That and spelling, but I'm like, I have Grammarly and it helps me out. I'm
actually interested in like trying to find out if people need any help with editing, or like I'm really good with grammar and spelling, and like my writing skills are pretty up there. But I've always
I'm a storyteller, and I can tell a good story. I can tell pacing. And I mean, I could show you all the art, and you can be like, yeah, no, I could see the how it just looks without even putting words on it.
Yeah, you don't need the dialogue.
Just seeing like the flow and stuff. You're like, all right, yeah, your flow and your pacing seems very nice, and the story flow is very nice. And I think that just has to do with my background and going to school for animation. And, in college, we had to do silent films. Like we couldn't do dialogue, so you have to basically do silent animated films. You learn how to tell a story without dialogue, and I still kind of like that.
No, it's all good, man, and definitely I can't wait to see more of what you're doing and see Unstitched, because I think it's going to be really good, and I think you're going to surprise a lot of people too, because I see that, like you said, it might be not derivative, but it might be like evocative of other things that people know of, but I think you're going to stand out among a lot of the other CG projects. So like, I think it'll stand the test of time.
And I am excited. I do have Enrico for chapter 2.
Okay, good. That was the guy that you were looking at, and he's committed now to issue 2?
Yep.
Nice.
Yep.
Okay, yeah, I like him. He's good because it'll fit the style. It's different enough, but it's also very in that same vein. Like it's not completely different from your style for the first book. So yeah, that'll work good.
Yeah, I mean,
show some of his stuff on Saturday if you come on the 12-hour stream. We'll continue this conversation and kind of. I think I'm going to try to do at least one stream a week too. I keep saying that, but now I'm like telling myself I got to commit to like either Mondays or Fridays or something like that. I'm going to try to.
I'm still trying to figure that out for me too.
Or maybe just Wednesdays, because like be between the Tuesday and the Thursday and just stream on Wednesday night. And even tonight I was only planning on doing an hour and a half anyway, and we always end up going like 3 hours. So once you get going, you just start talking about anything.
Yeah.
But yeah, okay, so I guess we'll call it there. But so I want to thank you guys for coming on, and we'll do it again soon. And otherwise, we'll see you guys on Saturday. So anybody watching this or sees it before then, Saturday, the 12th of September is the 12-hour stream on Richard's channel, Forest Publishing. So definitely check that out. We'll have links up on Twitter and stuff like that. And otherwise on this channel or one of my other ones, probably sometime next week. But otherwise, we'll see you guys on the next open mic. All right.
Yeah.
Everybody have a good night.
Peace.
Peace.